Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Box Office Bingers as I turn off John Williams. If you can't tell by the score, you need to watch movies. That's all I have to say. If you don't know what we're reviewing this week, the title of this episode will give it away. But if you can't get it by the score, I don't tell you. Ernesto, tell our listeners what we are reviewing this week and who we are reviewing it with.
Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, we are reviewing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And of course, we are bringing on the one and only Nick DeLorenzo. Sir, thank you so much for coming on. We are so happy to have you. Thank you so much for being here. You haven't been here since we did Knives Out, the second Knives Out. So happy to have you back. Thank you for coming back on.
Thank you for having me back. I'm so excited. I feel like my 25 years of being a fan of this franchise has really prepared me for this.
It's all led up to this moment.
Building to this, yeah.
Nick, let me ask you this. Did you do a rewatch? Did you watch all four movies leading up to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
That's how big of a fan I am. I didn't need to. I had seen them so recently. I didn't have to do that. I did. You know what? I didn't do that, but because I had seen them kind of recently. But I did watch like a dozen 10-minute breakdowns on why the original trilogy is such like a great series of three movies, and like all the just like celebrating the franchise by watching a bunch of other people talk about how great it is. That's what I did to build up to it.
Okay, I guess that's good enough. I mean, hell, we had again like 25 years, if not more, for us to enjoy these movies. So you don't necessarily do a rewatch. I know Ernesto knows this. I definitely rewatched all four movies leading up to Indiana Jones 5, and Ernesto, because we spoke about this on last week's episode. You said you weren't doing any prep.
Nope.
You were going. I mean, you've seen the first three. You haven't seen four, and you went in the long time ago. Okay, and so you want to go in there fresh.
Yeah, because I just wanted to come from I just want to start coming from an interesting perspective, whereas like you don't feel the necessity to rewatch everything. Like, how are they making the films accessible for new fans? Like for these franchises, Are they building them as jump-on points, or are they making them with the intention that they're going to make you watch the other ones just so that you can enjoy it? So that's kind of where I'm at with most like continuations and kind of franchise movies.
Okay. All right. So we're getting from three different perspectives here. So a little bit later on to the show, we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones, the Dial of Destiny, written and directed by James Mangold, who has done a lot of great hits. And in my opinion, with Indiana Jones withstanding, we'll talk about that later. But with the list of movies that he's done in the past, he has not made a bad movie, in my opinion. He did Logan, The Wolverine, Walk the Line, 3:10 to Yuma, Night and Day, and Ford v Ferrari. In my opinion, that's a pretty good track record of some pretty good movies that he's put out there. Logan and obviously Wolverine are the two that are more franchise driven. The other ones are kind of like either one's a reboot, one's a remake. Actually, two of them are remakes. A biopic and original story. No, actually, they're both biopics. Never mind. All these are. Never mind. There's no original story here. But regardless, I think he has a great track record. He also wrote Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny. He also wrote it with two other people, John Henry Butterworth He also wrote Edge of Tomorrow, Ford v Ferrari, and he's credited as the creator of Nine Perfect Strangers, which is a limited series on Hulu. At least it was anyway, until they decided to make a second season. And David, how do you pronounce that? Kennep?
John Henry Butterworth and David Cope,
Coep?
Koepp, Cope.
Yes, Cope maybe. And he's been in the business for a long time. He's credited as writing the original Jurassic Park as well as its sequel. You have the first Mission Impossible, Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, and he's also credited for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So he's been in the game before. They're picking him up. But yeah, we're going to be diving into all that. And if this was a true fitting ending for Harrison Ford last outing as Indiana Jones, we'll see if that was the case later on in the show. But first, Nick, let's get to you. Let's talk about you. It's been a while since we have spoken to you, like Ernesto said, is all the way back in, I think, January, and for Glass Onion, a Knives Out story. And you said at the end of that episode, you're like, if there's one episode I want to come back for, it's Indiana Jones. And we fulfilled that promise. And you also did. So thank you for doing that as well.
Thank you.
But we do know, for one thing, that you are affected. I've talked about this before on the podcast, but you are affected by the writer's strike that we've discussed many times before. So we kind of want to pick your brain a little bit on what is exactly going on in Hollywood related to this writer's strike. We know that you are affected by it, so kind of just give us kind of the breakdown of what's happening out there.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm both like indirectly and directly affected because the show that I work on is not filming anymore because of the strike, obviously. And, because of that kind of messed with Hollywood's schedule as a whole. And the late night shows are, with a couple exceptions, pretty much the first ones affected. And also, ironically, kind of the least affected by what they're negotiating for because they're all on network television for the most part. So the second the strike was initiated, the next day we had a show on Monday night, and we all were prepping for a show on Tuesday, but knowing it probably wasn't going to happen. And then at midnight, we knew that they were going to go with the strike, and so we didn't come in on Tuesday for the show. And it's just kind of been in limbo since then. It's just been kind of a weird transition period, I think, for Hollywood as it's adjusting to, and like certain shows were able to still film because they would have been written before. So there were productions that are going on, but now those, again, this is from my limited exposure, but those are kind of fizzling out, and there's kind of a big question up in the air on whether or not SAG, the Actors Union, is going to strike now that they've authorized the strike. And I know they postponed their negotiations a little bit. They pushed it back, I think, to the middle of July. And so that's really up in the air. And that will really dictate, I think, what this next phase ends up looking like. But for now, the show's not taping, and I've been watching a lot of movies. I've been going to the theater a lot. I renewed my AMC A-list.
Good choice.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, it paid for itself within 24 hours almost. And but as a whole, it's definitely a weird time. I've gone out and picketed, and it's kind of an interesting thing to see. It feels kind of surreal in certain ways, but it's an interesting time for the industry. But the writers are just, again, with a limited exposure because I'm not in the union per se. I just assist the people that are. But the original, like the negotiations that were prior in 2007, I think, or 08, they negotiated before streaming was really a thing. And the idea of like web content or streaming content was almost like reduced down to webisodes. If you remember that, like the idea of like online content was not looked at in any sort of high regard, or that was like the bottom of the barrel. So like the terms and wages that were negotiated for that type of content was probably fair for that time. But now that streaming has exploded and it's just rocketed past, network and cable, and and yet still the terms in place are based as if it's like an exclusive 5-minute iCarly webisode, you know? So trying to update that, and I know there's also like talks with AI, you know, kind of moving in the future, and the big issue I've heard a lot of the writers talk about primarily is again with these streaming, and trying to get the content up to snuff with the amount of eyeballs that are watching it now, you know, compared to when they were in the mid to early 2000s.
So obviously we're hoping for this to be ending soon. It's been going on since when? At least the
May
end
1st.
of. Sorry, when was it?
May 1st, I think. Yeah.
May 1st. Okay, so it's been easily 2 months now. A lot of people were hoping. A lot of people were hoping it wasn't going to extend to the 100 days that the last writer's strike was, and now it feels like that we're inching toward that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it looks like with SAG negotiations going on currently, like, and depending on how that goes, because they've already authorized the strike. And if my personal opinion is, I think if the actors go on strike, which I don't think they will, because I don't see how this industry can survive without actors. But if that happens, I think that'll expedite the process. I don't know what that means, if there's going to have to be more of a compromise met, or what like the negotiations will look like for that. But there's a lot up in the air right now, and it doesn't feel like to your point, it doesn't feel like this is going to be over tomorrow. So
Right. So as far as like whenever the end game is for this, are they just looking for the main reason what you were just describing was like kind of just fair compensation for streaming as well as some sort of security when it comes to AI? Is that the gist of what I'm hearing?
That's my understanding. The primary issue being streaming. I really think that's the big one, because I think that a lot of the studios that are creating content for these streaming platforms, they've done incredibly well. Like the biggest shows on the biggest streaming platforms are doing probably better than anything for the most part on network TV, I think, off the top of my head. And I think that to have such a drastic fall off in security, like I know that if you're a writer on a network show, you're able to theoretically live a much more sustainable life with consistency and have steady paycheck and benefits, and there's a lot more security, I think, with residuals. But from what I've heard from writers that have done both, who have worked on a network television show and a streaming show, it's almost it's like night and day, and it's much more of like a gig economy, or it's very it seems like the networks are realizing that based on the negotiations that they made at the last strike, they were able to kind of cut corners and minimize writers and shrink the room size, and then also the time that they need the writers, and forcing it into much more of it's just not sustainable for anybody to really make a career out of writing unless you get like a security or like a steady gig with a network show. But the irony being those shows aren't watched as much as some of the other shows are.
Right. So
it's just it's kind of a tough mess, and it feels like the big checks are being cut for the shows that I mean, everyone should be able to make a steady living, but it feels like the ones that are doing incredibly well would surprise you how little they make, and that's I feel like they're just fighting for a fair deal there.
I mean, and that's with anything, really. Like, we're all just looking to, you know, especially when you see millions of people, say, watching, I'm just using this as an example, but say, like, Stranger Things. And, like, everyone's watching Stranger Things, yet, you know, we see the actors and the directors and the producers are also doing all the other things, and then the writers kind of get shortchanged on. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I've written for one of the biggest shows on streaming right now, and I don't feel like you're getting compensated for how many people are going back and even rewatching those episodes as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just getting, and the writers are also just a great kind of vignette of also what's happening, you know, in every area, probably every industry ever, where there's just a lot of people who feel like they're getting underpaid for a product that a lot of people are really loving and enjoying. And just fighting for a fair shot to be able to keep doing that consistently and not be, you know, nervous going from gig to gig.
Yeah, I know. I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago, and they had a comic book creator on, and I really wish I remember the name, but I don't. But either way, they commented about, I think it was like the Winter Soldier. It's like, oh, I think this was actually now not a couple months ago, it was a couple years ago. I think he was credited as creating the Winter Soldier for comics, and so in the interview they were asking him about the Falcon and Winter Soldier series at the time, and he was like, yeah, I mean, it's great to see my character being loved by fans, but I'm not getting any residuals for my character that I created being on Disney Plus. Yeah. And so with that, obviously that's an issue. Like, he created this character, yet he's not getting fairly compensated for his on-screen appearance, because at the time of creating the character, how would he would have known that now he's going to be part of a huge franchise like that?
Totally, yeah. I think that there's a lot of stories like that, and I think even just as a new writer starting, as somebody that wants to join the Writers Guild eventually, and like somebody who's looking up to eventually working their way up there, it's from what I've heard from the people that are a couple steps ahead of me and that have entered in as a new writer, it's while on one hand there's so many more opportunities to be a writer than there were before. Like, there's so many more shows and channels and networks and areas where people are making content. There's also so much less security in what that means before. Like, if you made it as a writer and you're staffed in a writer's room on a show on a at least semi-familiar platform of some kind, it used to mean a lot more security than it does now. And so I think it's great that they're taking a stand and trying to get some compensation for work well earned, but again, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I ultimately I'm not a writer that's in the guild, but this is just from kind of what I'm witnessing.
So I feel like at this point you have more of a better idea than we do. So
no more than us.
Yeah, especially when you're out there picketing. I know at the beginning of May and toward like the first month or two, they were a lot more people were picketing in the early stages. Now, from what I'm hearing, it's a little bit less, but they're still out there. And so, like, you're fighting the good fight here, because I think any creator, especially we've created a hobby, a fun thing for Ernesto and I to do every week, to predicate it off of movies. And we often talk about, like, that's why we want to credit at the beginning of every episode, when we tell them what we're reviewing, telling our listeners what we're reviewing, we want to talk about the directors and the writers. Yeah. Because for us, the story is the most important thing when it comes to the movie.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
So we want to make sure that they're credited, and also, even related to the writer's strike, we want to make sure that they feel like they're fairly compensated, because in my head, if you feel like you're fairly compensated, you're going to put your best work out there.
Yep.
And then and that will lead to a better product, that will lead to a better show or a better movie, or anything that makes us as fans of this medium really enjoys, like, man, that was one hell of an episode, or man, that was a great movie. It feels like there's some value to it. So yeah, of course we want, all of them to be fairly compensated. But yeah, hopefully this writer's strike ends soon, so Nick, you can get back to work as well. But in the meantime, it sounds like, at the very least, excuse me, that's what I meant to say. I don't know why I said excuse you. That's
excuse you, sir.
Excuse you. I was talking, on my sir. Show. I was like, the name just escaped me. He's like, excuse. No, that's what I excuse me is what I would say. Bless you, Ernesto. Bless you. This is why Ernesto's here, to keep me on track.
I try to keep you from going off the rails. He's like, go this way, Matt, not that way.
Yeah, come on. He's like, come on, literally pulled me aside. Oh, come on. But yeah, anyway, we do have a little bit of entertainment news we want to talk about. And I honestly, as right before we were recording, I was like, we'll skip the news. Nothing big happened. And then Nick and I and Ernesto, we were just talking about the later. Like, what? We were just talking a little bit about it. It's a good time. So the first thing is, honestly, with everything that's been going on, especially with the writer's strike, not a lot of news has been happening. It's hard to progress any film or TV show. And even so, there's Comic-Con is coming up. And Marvel, Netflix, Disney, Universal, Sony, Warner Brothers had all backed out of Comic-Con, typically this is a big place for them to give big announcements, show trailers, and I can only assume with the writer's strike, they're like, well, we can't be certain on half of the stuff that we want to put out in the future because no one's writing them. So therefore, we're not going to have any presence in Comic-Con. So the news this year at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, is going to be pretty bare. And that's
this year it's for the fans and just the fans.
Yeah.
Exactly. So news hasn't been, there. But there is one thing that's happening. Deadpool 3 is filming right now, and there is word, and I don't think it's 100% official, but all the news sites seem to say so, that Jennifer Gardner is set to reprise her role as Elektra in Marvel Studios' Deadpool 3. Gardner first originated the role of Elektra in 2003's Daredevil with Ben Affleck, and then returned to headline her own film in 2005's Elektra. As previously announced, Deadpool 3 will also see the return as Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine, along with Miranda Bacall. Thank you. As Vanessa and Brianna Hildbrand as, you see, this is why he's here. Negasonic Teenage Warhead. She's returning for her role as that. Sean Levy, who directed Reynolds and Gardner in 2022's The Atom Project, is directing the film and is scheduled to hit theaters May 3rd, 2024. It actually moved up by 6 months from its previous September release date. So, Nick, we were talking about this. Jennifer Gardner, everything Deadpool 3. We also just got a set photo at the time of this recording yesterday of Hugh Jackman donning the classic Wolverine suit, which looks amazing. So what are your thoughts on everything Deadpool 3?
I'm so excited. I think and this is coming from somebody that I love the idea of Deadpool and what they've done, but I can't, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I've ever watched both movies all the way through. I think I've sat and watched parts of them, like they've been on, and I think I've seen maybe all of the first one, but I love what I've seen, and I'm so excited for this one. Also, the set photo of Wolverine just makes me so excited at the idea of maybe there's going to be multiple different versions of Wolverine, so maybe that's just one of many. So they could just go through all the different variations of I'm just so excited with the possibilities and Deadpool now being a part of the MCU and getting to play around with essentially both the Fox universe and now Disney's. I just think that's I can't imagine that it's at least not going to be fun.
Ernesto, what about you?
I mean, look at that. We're finally getting the classic for those who are watching us on YouTube. We have the set photo pulled up of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, and then Hugh Jackman in the classic yellow and blue. And also, if you notice, he's got the spiked haircut, like the 90s, like the 90s Wolverine. So
do you think they give him a mask?
I think they have to. I mean, they're going this far. They're going this far. Why? He may not keep it on. At least give it to us for a second.
Also, how great the payoff of even just if you look at the Deadpool trilogy, to have that joke have started in the first one with Hugh Jackman and that is such a great payoff.
Yeah.
Even just from that perspective. Yeah.
You're talking from the first X-Men movie, right? When they're in the jet and he's talking about wearing yellow and blue.
Oh, that. But I mean, even just from the first Deadpool movie, when they have all the jokes in involve Hugh Jackman and the fact that the crossover, the second one they reference it all the time. But yeah, back to when he references the yellow suit and everything. Yeah, that's great. This is so much fun, and it's so great that because I would imagine this is probably the last time Hugh Jackman plays Wolverine.
Well, we thought that with Logan too. So to me, this needs to be it. As much as I love Hugh Jackman, this should be it. This is how you go.
And I think it's great that he gets to wear the classic suit, kind of play around in the Marvel universe. Because I know he mentioned in interviews before that he'd always thought that'd be fun to have that crossover. And I think they give him that chance. I think is so cool. And then like you said, Ernesto, then kind of sit back and that's the best way to end. That's the best of both worlds. Have fun in the MCU with Deadpool, and you also get a great finale in Logan, and both can coexist at the same time.
Because to me, Logan, that was the perfect send off for that character. It's almost hey, You're not going to be in anything that we got going on over here, but we're going to give you your own standalone film, which is, like, besides it being a superhero film, it's just a great film in general.
I was just about to say the same thing. It is. I rewatched that recently. Just a great movie.
Absolutely,
Like
100%.
It happens to be superheroes, but it's like just a modern Western almost.
Yes.
And it's just great. Yeah,
Yes.
it's such a solid movie. Yeah.
And I think for me, this feels like Hugh Jackman's swan song to the character of Wolverine. Kind of everything you guys were saying just now. Like, yeah, that was like Logan was the finale of Logan. Logan was the finale for Hugh Jackman for playing a character for the last 20 years and his role as Wolverine in the X-Men Fox universe. But this feels like we're just taking a victory lap right now.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
This is Hugh Jackman. It's like, this is his fan fiction, his wish fulfillment, them backing up the money truck and like, hey, Kevin Feige just knocking on his door, just like, one more time, man. Just one more time.
Back it on up.
Hunter was
Back it up
for an encore. Yeah, he's just like, the crowd's still going nuts, and he's like, all right, I'll give you the hit one more time. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this was predating Spider-Man: No Way Home when we knew that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire was in that movie. So like Marvel was just kind of like, all right, we're just bringing everybody back into this because we can. And I think from what we know so far, Deadpool 3 seems like what I wanted Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness to be.
I felt the same way. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, we're already, even without seeing much, we've already gotten key hints of all this crossover. We got Deadpool, we got X-Men, we have Elektra. Like that's so many different pinpoints in the Marvel universe, in any part of the different Marvel universes coming together.
Yeah, and who's to say that if they got Jennifer Garner to come back as Elektra, who's to say that Ben Affleck's not going to play ball and put on a Daredevil suit? I mean, come on. Like, you even if you think about it, you even have Colin Farrell as Bullseye. They could even go that far.
But wait, didn't he die? Did he die? He died at the end of Daredevil, didn't he?
It doesn't matter.
Whoa, Matthew. Whoa. In the multiverse, everyone's alive.
That's exactly what's happening. But Nick, you mentioned something. I didn't even think about it, having like Hugh Jackman play multiple versions of Wolverine. Like that, to me, that's now just wild. My brain just going everywhere about it. But yeah, even related to the Fox stuff, we can. I don't think this was Fox. This was Lionsgate. But we can even see Nicolas Cage come back as Ghost Rider. We can see Wesley Snipes come back as Blade again, not Fox, but still. We can see what was Fox was the Fantastic Four, and they already have Chris Evans in the Marvel in that version. Why not bring him back as Human Torch and all those other Jessica Alba as the Invisible Woman? Like, it's possible that they could have a lot of fun here, just kind of playing around with other characters. James McAvoy they already got Patrick Stewart to come back as Professor X. Who's to say they're not gonna do it again? The same with James McAvoy.
Yeah, Michael Fassbender too. How far you want to take this, man?
Yeah, everybody. At this point, you got Jennifer Garner to come back. I want everyone who give me Jennifer Lawrence back as Mystique. Give me that too. I'll take everything. Anybody who was in any other non-MCU Marvel movie, bring him back. Bring back the old George Lucas Howard the Duck movie. Give me that.
What if that's the movie? What if Deadpool 3 is just Deadpool's train ride into the MCU, and it's just his adventure of picking everybody up and dealing with them through the different universes? It's like his universe is collapsing, and it's his journey into the MCU.
Well, it's funny because it's really not that far off from what they've already established. Because at the end of Deadpool 2, he was already time traveling. He time traveled back to where Ryan Reynolds, being meta, he shot him. He shot Ryan Reynolds from going from agreeing to being Green Lantern. Like we're already there. They've already went that crazy. So to see that they can't go even further than that, it's funny because I think Kevin Feige said, at least relating to the multiverse, you had it kind of all started with Loki, that since they killed the man who remains, the the man with no name, him who remains, something along those lines. When they killed off Voldemort, when they killed off Voldemort, thank you. When they killed off Jonathan Majors' character at the end of Loki season 1, they I guess a different variant of Kang. They were the ones that broke the multiverse. And then between Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, they're saying there's tears in the multiverse that we've seen a little bits of between those two movies because now it's vulnerable. And now, according to Kevin Feige, Deadpool 3 is the true, it's gone off the rails. And apparently, if we're trying to tie all this together, that's what get Kang's attention to be like, or someone's attention to be like, okay, this has gone too far. You know, the people in Earth, whatever, is creating a ruckus. We gotta reel things in. And so that's the idea that I'm getting here, that Deadpool's going to be the movie that we're going to have a lot of fun with. And what great way to not only, and even for Hugh Jackman, what a great way for Deadpool 3, at least what it seems like anyway, to incorporate Deadpool into the MCU, making this an MCU movie, while also giving everyone from the past Marvel movies, whatever they can get their hands on, whatever actors they want to come back, to give them like one last ride. Like, hey, you know what? We're all part of the MCU. Not just Robbie Downey Jr. and Iron Man moving forward. Everyone's part of the MCU, and that's, I don't know, I feel like that could be something special as well.
I'm here for it. I'm here for anything they do. I just I don't want is this gonna be Wolverine's introduction and then like he's gonna be in everything now? Like I don't want that either. Like this, I think a victory lap is a great way to put it. Is what should happen. It's like we don't want to overuse it. We don't want to not overstay its welcome, but that. But yes, that.
I get the feeling that because they've already set up a different Wolverine in the MCU.
Not yet.
No.
Right? Wasn't there that article in the background of the show where it's implied a guy with claws got arrested, or a guy with blades?
It's possible.
I'm pretty sure that I think it was either Miss Marvel or
wasn't it Miss Marvel? Well, I thought what we found out from Miss Marvel was that mutants are, because Miss Marvel is a mutant.
Right, but there was one show
where
there was somebody pointed out that there was an article that hints at Wolverine coming down the line. I can't remember which show that was, but so I don't think it'll be. I think Wolverine is definitely coming in a different form in the MCU, like for more of a permanent, as are I think the X-Men, but. I feel like with this, I think it'll be kind of like what Matt said, which will be like a fun victory lap for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and then I can't imagine he pops up fast at this movie.
You're actually correct. She-Hulk. It was She-Hulk. She-Hulk teased Wolverine's existence in the MCU. An easy-to-miss reference in She-Hulk Attorney at Law Episode 2 is a hint that a version of Logan is somewhere on Earth 616, meaning that he already shared the same universe as the Avengers, Guardians, Galaxies, and Spider-Man.
Interesting.
I didn't remember. I didn't catch that.
I caught it when someone else caught it.
Yeah, I did forget that did the introduction of the mutants per se at the end of Miss Marvel.
Oh,
we're gearing up for it as well. But I think as far as the future of the MCU moving forward, like, we're setting up these multiverse saga. We already know that Secret Wars and the Kang Dynasty is coming out at the end of this next phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So now I'm assuming that the X-Men are going to be coming soon to give us the next pillar of the next big phase of the MCU, as well as the Fantastic Four as well, because those are the two big properties they haven't really played with yet in the MCU. So regardless, I'm also very excited. I feel like I'm overhyping Deadpool 3 a lot, but they've been giving
I think either way it's going to be fun. I think even if like not, because I agree with you. I had the same thought when I was reading the articles of like what people are theorizing and stuff. I think this one might be more of what I kind of thought Multiverse of Madness was going to be.
Agreed. Yeah. And especially with the title of Multiverse of Madness, you would think they would have done anything with it, except for they gave us 4 seconds of the Illuminati, and then Wanda was like, nah, psych. Thanks, Sam Raimi.
Just annihilated them.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on from Marvel talk, the last piece of news that came out this week, which is also somewhat relevant to the future box office maybe successes that come out at the end of July. But Greta Gerwig, the director behind Lady Bird, Little Women, and the upcoming Barbie movie, has secured a deal with Netflix to write and direct 2 films based off C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia book series. Netflix announced its multi-year deal with C.S. Lewis Company back in October of 2018, and later enlisted Coco writer Matthew Aldridge as the creative architect, overseeing the development of all movies and shows adapted from C.S. Lewis's beloved Narnia universe. It's unclear which Narnia story Netflix will choose to adapt first, and which stories from that world Greta Gerwig is planning to write and direct. So, Nick, are you familiar with the Narnia series, Greta Gerwig's work? Do you think this is a good transition for her from Barbie to Narnia? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, look, raised Catholic, we know C.S. Lewis well. Yeah, no, I've seen all the movies that they made. I even saw the original. I don't know if it's the original, but I think it's the BBC version.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I remember watching those when I was a kid, and then yeah, I think this could be fun. I'm interested to see. I wonder if they will go the route of, because now they've rebooted Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, kind of, and that's I think the property that people are most familiar with when it comes to the Narnia world. So I wonder if they'll start. Because I think the first one is technically The Magician's Nephew. I think it's what it's called. The first, chronologically, I think it's like a prequel to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I wonder if they'll maybe try to differentiate themselves a little bit and kind of start off this new Narnia world with maybe the book that's not as popular, but technically first.
Right.
But either way, I think it'd be great. Once I saw that news had broke, I saw a bunch of people fan casting Timothy Chalamet as the Fawn or Mr. Tumnus.
Mr. Tumnus, yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
funny.
oh, that fits perfectly. That's great, and because he's obviously worked. Yeah, this would be cool. I think if done well, this would be great. I was never a huge fan of the Narnia series, but I always enjoyed them. I thought they were good, and I think she's really talented and an incredible director and writer. So.
Yeah, and I think that the 2 that Disney did, I thought they were really good. I know that the third movie, like I think Disney lost the rights at some point after Prince Caspian, and then they did another movie like something of the Dawn Trotter. I don't remember the
Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I didn't realize that wasn't Disney.
That was not. No, that was actually, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Fox.
Oh, interesting.
So Lion, Witch, the Wardrobe, and Prince Caspian was Disney. Fox got the Voyage of Dawn Trotter, and then they hadn't done anything else with it. And then it's surprising that Netflix, they required that back in 2018. So it's been 5 years they've been holding on to this property that they haven't been able to get off the ground for some reason. And maybe the pandemic has something to do with it. But yeah, and now it feels like we're getting some traction there. Ernesto, are you familiar with this series at all? Or
yeah, I mean, from the movies, I actually really enjoyed the movies. And Matt, I just looked it up. It was Fox that did Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Okay.
But yeah, my only guess is, I guess, so then, like, forget all the movies that just came out. Like, I guess we're just hitting the reset, just another one. Like, you invest all into a franchise, and we're just hitting the reset button. Like, the other one I'm still kind of weird about is the Harry Potter one too. Like, we're just gonna completely reset everything, even though there's like, roller coasters and rides and lands and all this other invested into these 8 movies already, but we're just gonna hit restart and just redo all 7 books.
It's funny because I feel like Harry Potter is more well known. Doing a reset on that is, to me, a really stupid idea. Like, I guess I hear you that this is going, like, this new Harry Potter series that's going to be on Max is going to be more faithful to the book. But I'm sorry, Harry Potter, a movie franchise, is so ingrained in pulp culture. It's hard to do a hard reset on that when people are still enjoying what you already done, with the 8 movies prior. Given also the fact that, yes, you're right, they've built lands and like this in theme parks, and so like I don't know. I don't think they're gonna get rid of it, but to have two out there seems kind of silly to me when there's one already out there.
I think Narnia might be the perfect type of franchise to reboot because I guarantee that the average person couldn't even name anyone in the original cast.
That's fair.
And I think that lends itself to. I think it's a story people are vaguely familiar with, and unless they were a big fan of the books or of the series, but I think they know the characters' names more than they would know the. Like I think with Harry Potter, there's such actors associated with characters.
Correct. Yeah.
And I feel like that's just not the case with Narnia. And I really liked the first two. I wasn't as big of a fan of the Don Treader one. But it's also like that type of movie. Actually, now that the only reason why I remember going to see the Don Treader in theaters was because I got food poisoning from the popcorn at the and that's because of that. That's the reason I've never gotten popcorn at a movie since then.
Wow.
Dang.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was rough.
It was.
I can imagine.
But I think you make a good point about like people are familiar with Narnia, but it's not as popular as it was back in the day. I mean, I haven't heard. I mean, when the latest I heard back from Narnia is when Netflix bought them out, and that was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And like,
I think of Narnia the most when I see Ben Barnes come on the TV with a T-Mobile commercial. I'm like, oh yeah, Prince Caspian.
Yeah, you are.
Yes, exactly.
And I think he's great, but like that's what reminds me of those movies, you know? Like, yeah, to your point.
Yeah. I think Narnia is a good franchise to reboot. What I am interested in, and you made a good point about prequels and, one of the books being a prequel. They said they're going to be spreading these stories out between movies and TV shows. So what do they consider being a movie? What do they consider being a TV show? I think kind of very similar to Percy Jackson and the Olympian stories. We had 2 movies based off of that, and then Disney got the rights, and so now they're doing a Disney Plus series based off of that book series. I think that's a good franchise to reboot because then I feel like they didn't really get a fair shake, or it wasn't really as popular to trying to transcend time through pop culture as big as Harry Potter was. So I think getting another stab, bite of the apple, so to speak. I think this is good. And I find it interesting that Greta Gerwig, coming off of Barbie, which I feel like her first 2 movies, Lady Bird and Little Women, were more indie flicks. And then comparing all 3 movies, they're all female-driven, original stories. Well, not Little Women. Little Women's based off of, not Little Women, but at least female-driven stories. I'm very curious what her interest is going into a franchise like that.
Well, it seems like her success with Little Women would lend to her doing well for any of the Narnia properties. Like, are you able to take an old book and make it enjoyable to a current audience?
That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way, of taking the novel. But yeah, I mean, I'm also really excited to see Barbie. It looks like that movie looks like a lot of fun. And also, I've been Nick, have you been enjoying the what they deemed as Barbenheimer?
Yeah.
Are you doing the Barbenheimer double feature?
Yeah. I won't be just timing wise. I have to be out of town, but I am going to go see both of those movies. So.
Yeah, at one point. But it's funny because I just saw an article. I wrote it down actually. I saw an article.
Is it the AMC one?
Yes.
Over 20,000 AMC members have booked
the
Barbenheimer double feature, to see both movies in one day. And people were asking me, "Are you going to do it?" I was like, "No, I have children and people who depend on me. I just don't have the time to spend. Although I would, if I didn't have responsibilities, I would 100% take advantage of that."
It's also, isn't Oppenheimer the longest movie Christopher Nolan's made?
It's 3 hours long.
Yeah, I don't want to watch 2. I want to enjoy each movie, not suffer through one of them.
Well, it's funny because a lot of people are like, I mean, 20,000 AMC stub members already committing to a double feature. That's pretty big. No matter what happens at the box office, it seems like that both movies are winning regardless, because somehow the marketing has, for some reason, people are fixated on the fact that both of these movies are coming out on the same day. It's never, 2 big movies have never released on the same day before. And now
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know that there's some executive somewhere that's now going to try and reproduce that same effect with like two of their movies that come out at the same time. But I don't think what people get is that I think it's because of like the hilarious contrast, right? That's why it's kind of funny. Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of people. My favorite meme was like the viewing order. It was like a lot of people were saying you got to watch Barbie first, but they're wrong. You see, this is what you do. You wake up in the morning, you have black coffee and a cigar, and then you go watch Oppenheimer, and then after the 3-hour Oppenheimer, you go debrief, you go get brunch somewhere, give yourself a reset, then you go get a mimosa, go watch Barbie, and then you party all night long. That's you go to the club after you watch Barbie and you have a good time. And I figured, yeah, I like that. I don't know why that makes sense to me, but it does.
Well, because you're gonna be. I mean, Oppenheimer. It's a movie about the atomic bomb, so it's gonna be somewhat depressing. Like you're gonna walk out there and like question your life choices. That's what Nolan's. That's what I'm planning on Nolan's gonna do to you. And, you know, and Barbie's gonna be very like uplifting and funny. I mean, you got Will Ferrell.
Yeah. And on the high note, and on the happy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that like out of all the movies, it's like it's the two. So it's like you have Barbie, which looks like a fun time, and then you have the movie of Christopher Nolan that people typically go to the theaters to go watch. It's like I need to go run to the theater to see the latest Christopher Nolan movie, but I don't know, that Barbie movie looks kind of fun though, so I kind of want to see that too. And it's funny because I remember reading an article that Matt Damon, they interviewed him, is like, what do you think about Barbie coming out the same as Oppenheimer? And he goes, people are allowed to see two movies at the same time. He's like,
2 days in
I don't know
weekend.
why people are talking.
Go see one on Friday, go see another one on Saturday.
That's how that works. Yeah. But I think it's just crazy what the internet has latched onto, and it's just, to me, this has been fun. This is like the box office numbers have been pretty bleak lately, especially what happened with The Flash, what we're going to talk about with Indiana Jones. Like there hasn't been a lot of box office successes this time around, and so I kind of find it kind of funny that maybe this marketing that the internet has deemed as Barbenheimer might be a hit for both movies, and that's not something they planned for. So they should really capitalize on that.
The one meme I saw that I really enjoyed were because they did like a life-size Barbie house, and it's like the Barbie dream house on rent. Like, I guess they're renting it or they're showcasing it, and it's like your move, Oppenheimer. Like, they're going to bomb the house or something.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I'm excited to watch both movies for different reasons, obviously. But yeah, anyway, that's all the entertainment news we have for you guys this week. As always, you can find us on our social media channels and find all the latest and breaking news on our social media channels. On Instagram at boxoffice_bingers and our Facebook page at Box Office Bingers. And now, thanks to Instagram and Meta, our Threads page at Box Office Bingers. We are on Threads now. It's funny because I saw that it went live and I was gonna start doing the prop for it, and I was like, I got you. I'll beat you too. We're already there.
We're already on Threads.
We're already on Threads.
It was an easy setup. Like it's like you just I just downloaded the app and I was already logged into our page, and I just opened the app and says, hey, do you want to log in and transfer over? Sure, why not?
Why not?
Done.
Threads have been fun to read. A lot of great stuff has been on Threads. It's like the new social media, and so like everyone's having fun with it. And I feel like, this is like old school. Give it a month and it'll be back to what our normal scheduled programming on social media. But for now, Threads is a fun time. But you can also find us on Threads at Box Office Bingers. But anyway, we're gonna move into a fun segment we like to call What You're Watching. So Nick, you are our guest. We'll start with you. What have you been watching? And it seems like it's been quite a bit because you said you just re-upstated your AMC A-list.
That's right.
Oh, it's been quite a lot. I'll say I watched Asteroid City. I thought that was a lot of fun. I always like appreciated Wes Anderson's style. I always like thought that was so cool that it was such a unique thing that was very, very personal to his taste and preferences. But every once in a while I would get like, I wasn't like super into all of his movies. Like I liked Fantastic Mr. Fox. There's a couple of them that I can like enjoy, but I would kind of get bored and a little bit, they weren't always for me necessarily. I liked and appreciated what he was doing, but like, I don't know, I would never rewatch them, or I don't know, I found them a little boring. But I really liked Asteroid City. I thought it was funny and it was nice and like tight. It wasn't too long. It felt like it was the perfect length, and maybe just hit me at the right moment. But I really enjoyed that one. I
A
really
lot of
liked.
people a lot of people are calling that as one of his best movies, like he's
Oh,
made.
interesting. I saw a lot of people kind of knocking on it, and I felt bad
Really?
for loving it so much. But yeah, okay, good. It's good. I'm glad to know I'm not in the minority there. I thought it was really good. I liked it a lot. And have you both seen it?
No, we were
No,
gonna.
I haven't seen it
Yeah,
yet.
we were gonna
Oh,
go
okay.
see it, but it just didn't work out for our scheduling for when we're
Oh,
for
yeah,
our
I
plan of films to review. But I am interested to see it because especially it has such a good cast. Like it seems like they have a big. Well, he usually does have a lot of big names, but it seems this one more than others seems to have the biggest names.
Yeah, and Nick, I agree with you. Like, I'm not the hugest Wes Anderson fan myself either, but between I really liked Grand Budapest Hotel, and I liked The French Dispatch that came out 2 years ago. But like Isle of Dogs is just that one didn't do it for me.
Ooh,
You know.
Yeah, no, me neither. I always want to like the movie more than I end up doing. Like
Yes.
with
Yeah.
Grand Budapest Hotel, it was okay, but I wanted to love it, and I just didn't. It just didn't click for me. It wasn't for me.
His style is so unique that you're like, the story has to be as great as his style, and it just
Right.
sometimes it just doesn't hit it that way. Yeah.
It is a good testament also to how important story is, because the style can be incredible, but if there really isn't a great story there, doesn't work. But yeah, I liked that one a lot. I saw No Hard Feelings. I thought that was a blast. I thought that was super fun. Because I was thinking, like, while I sat down to watch that movie, like, when was the last time that I saw a comedy in the theater? You know, just like a straight. That was super fun. I liked that one. I thought that was great. I watched Gladiator for the first time.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, totally get why that's a classic. That was good. Last night I watched Prisoners. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
great movie.
Wow, that was. Can't believe I never heard of that one. That was.
That's an incredible movie. That's for real.
My heart was in knots. I was on the edge of my seat, and yeah, that one was quite the ride. Great movie, but boy, did that leave me feeling really disturbed and sad. That was just heartbreaking. But yeah, such an incredible movie. Yeah, oh man, that was really good. But then I had to stay up. I couldn't go to bed. I was like, I'm scared to fall asleep now.
I need to decompress.
Yeah, I was like, I told
I
my
know-
roommate, I was like, we're gonna watch a couple of episodes of Arrested Development.
I know that I'm not the biggest Denis Villeneuve fan. Yes, I'm not the biggest fan. A lot of people really loved Arrival, and I wasn't there. A lot of people like Blade Runner 2049. Also wasn't for me either. I did like Dune Part 1, and we'll see with Part 2 coming later this year. But Prisoners, that's the one that I refer to as that's a great movie.
Yeah, that is.
Arrival's
It is
pretty great too.
incredible.
Though. Arrival's one.
Which
of my,
one?
Arrival's one.
One
of
Arrival?
Arrival is one of my favorite films. That's a great.
Yeah, and that's
one of
I feel
love
like I
that
gotta
movie.
rewatch it.
Ah,
I gotta rewatch it.
It is. It's that one. That one brings me to tears. That one. I love that movie. It's so good.
Wow.
Regardless.
Okay.
But I agree with you. I really liked Dune. I thought it was really well done. I'm excited to see what the next one comes.
Mm-hmm. What did you got, Nick?
I think those are the highlights. I think for sure. And then my girlfriend had never seen any Star Wars movies, so we just recently rewatched the entire.
You watched
Star Wars.
all 9? All right. Did you do it chronologically or by release?
Here's how we did it. We're up to 7 right now.
Okay.
But here's what happened, because I told her, I was like, you can kind of do 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and if you're not into it, you can kind of leave it at that. That's what many people would consider, I think, as the pure Star Wars experience. I feel like.
Yeah.
And but then I found out, based on what she was saying, that she didn't know who shows up in 7, and I'm like, oh, now you have to watch 7 to somehow avoid all of the marketing material for Han Solo coming back. I'm like, and Leia and Luke and all that. I'm like, this is great. So to watch it with her when Han Solo and Chewie run under the Millennium Falcon, and she had no idea that was about to happen. That was incredible. That was worth 12 hours or however long it was. It was great. Yeah.
You make a really good point about discovery, right? Because when we are prepping for a movie, especially like, I mean, even Indiana Jones is a great example. We're seeing promos, we're seeing marketing, we're looking at the first poster, we were doing all of this prep for the excitement of this movie that sometimes, and we've talked about this many times in the podcast, that, you know, either the marketing or the trailer can ruin some aspects of the movie. But then there's a few movies that either we just missed for whatever reason, and you're going in there completely blind, and you get blown away by something that was already revealed that was going to happen. Like at Comic-Con. Like, Comic-Con revealed that Harrison Ford was coming back as Han Solo. Like, this wasn't going to be a surprise. We knew what to expect. But for someone to be like, oh my God, he came, like, how did you not know that? But that's the surprise that should be in every movie.
Oh, it was a blast to watch those first 6 movies with someone who, she knew that Darth Vader was the father. So, like, some stuff had been spoiled just by, you know, being a human on this planet. But then she... Like the little things she didn't like. It was great. It was so much fun. Like all of the little plot twists that like you just grow up knowing and like don't really surprise you at all. It was like watching it. It felt like what I would imagine a parent must feel when like they're introducing great food to a baby. And it's like, oh, you're gonna love what a marshmallow tastes like, you know? And that's like blowing their mind.
Yeah, like, look at them enjoy that. Ah, it's so great. Yes, yes, it's exactly that.
So I'm sorry. Which order did you view it again? I missed it.
I was like, you can't do it chronologically, in my opinion, because you can't go 1, 2, 3 and then have the effects get way worse and the movies get longer. You know, like you have to start 4, 5, 6, I think, and then 1, 2, 3. And that's what we did.
I can agree with that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's no wrong answer there. There's also a really weird one that people do. It's 1, 2. 4, 5, 3. No. Yeah. 1, 2, 4, 5, 3, 6.
That's insane.
Yeah. That sounds like madness.
My argument for doing the 4, 5, 6.
No, wait, no. I'm sorry. I apologize. I did it all completely wrong. It's 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. That's the order. 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6.
Yeah, I think you also have to remember that 1, 2, and 3 were made with the idea that you've already seen 4, 5, and 6. So there's a lot of like little references and jokes and stuff that I just feel like you won't be able to appreciate unless you've seen 4, 5, and 6. And they even like linger on shots that are only rewarding if you've seen that character and what they become later on. So I feel like you have the most rewarding experience if you watch it 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, but like, I think the idea of the 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6 is that you get the beginning, how it all started, and then you kind of get left on a cliffhanger on 5 because then you realize that Luke is Darth Vader's father. Spoiler. Darth Vader is Luke's father, and then from there you kind of ponder on that cliffhanger, and then you watch 1, 2, and 3, the uprising of Darth Vader, and then you get the resolution of the climax between Luke and Darth Vader. I think that's the idea.
Yeah, and that could be fun too, because then you would still be able to, I feel like, get a lot of the little nods and references, having already seen 4 and 5. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, 7, 8, and 9 are not part of this at all.
Also, it's so fun trying to explain it to somebody that doesn't know, because it's like my roommate and I are just like sitting there being like, okay, yeah, so we start with 4, 5, and 6, and then there's 1, 2, and 3, and then there's technically like 3.5, and then there's, and then we're gonna go into 7. But you like, I told her, I was like, you can kind of end at 7, because in my opinion, it's like 8 and 9's like, ugh. So it's, but the second I found out she didn't know that like the original cast came back, I'm like, oh, you have to at least sit through 7. It's fun.
So is she gonna watch 8 and 9?
I think she wants to watch Rogue One, but I think she's fine after that. Yeah.
That's not bad though. Like that's not a bad ending point. Like also like she sat through 6 movies, now 7. So she did enough. She did enough, right?
Yeah. And now she's to her credit, she's joining us to go watch the new Mission Impossible movie. So right now, she's probably right now as we speak, hunkering down watching 4 or 5.
Hey, I know you do 7 Star Wars movies, but if you don't mind, can you sit through another 6 Mission Impossible movies?
I'm like, look, you can go into this blind, or you could have a good time. So
Just depends on what experience you want.
It's so funny, like going back to trying to explain things when it was WandaVision, when Evan Peters showed up as Quicksilver,
which we'll
we'll
never see again.
And Megan, it would never see again. And technically, he didn't come back as Quicksilver, which is a fun nod. But regardless, like Megan was like, "Oh, the guy from American Horror Story's in this show," and I said, "Babe, no, that's." And she was like, "No, I don't want to know." I was like, no, you got. If we're watching the show, you gotta know. And so now we're literally sitting here, like, okay, all right. Back in 2000, they made a movie called X-Men. And then you go down the line. I was like, Megan, it's starting. They're playing with the multiverse. It's for real this time. And she's like, all right. I'll let you have your fun, but after this, I don't care anymore. But yeah, you also mentioned you watched The Flash. Speaking of fast superhero characters.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
You're a lot nicer.
That was really bad. I didn't like that. Yeah, I feel bad because I'm sure a lot of people worked really hard on it, but boy, did it not show. Yeah.
There was just a lot of the run.
I was with the CGI babies in the beginning. I was like, oh no. I'm like, because I went in to watch it, and I feel like right before that is when I started to see people making fun of the VFX, and I remember people saying, I remember reading that there was one scene where it's like somebody compared it to like the PlayStation graphics or something, and I remember thinking like, wait, is it this early in the movie? And then there was just so many scenes where I was like, I didn't know which one they were talking about because there were just so many where I was like, this is just bad. I didn't really like him at all. Like he was just kind of like, it felt like he was trying to do like a Tom Holland Spider-Man impression sort of. And then also, I just found it like really unlikable. And then the whole, just the plot and the story and the everything that they did with it, which is bad. I don't know. It wasn't for me. I thought Michael Keaton was cool, but then I also thought when they showed that Michael Keaton was going to be in it, I was like, oh wow, if they're revealing that one, I can only imagine how many things they're like kind of holding close to their chest. And then that was it. Like they had a couple little things near the end, but like that was it.
That was it. There was nothing else.
That was like, that's all we have to offer. That's all we got.
Yeah, and I will say I called Clooney coming from like before we watched the movie. I was like, I bet if any other Batman shows up, it's going to be George Clooney, and it was. But I was like, interesting. So that was that. I guess they're resetting it all. But like, is the idea that now Affleck's out and they were going to use Clooney? Is that like, or just kind of a nod?
No, we talked about this in our Flash episode. For me, I believe that this is Barry stuck in a universe where when you move a can of tomatoes, you get George Clooney as Batman, and that's that. That's the world that you live in, and then James Gunn's universe has nothing to do with any of that.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. But yeah, I didn't. So you guys didn't like that movie either, right? Is that what?
Yeah, it was okay. I think I wanted. I wanted a lot more out of it. Especially when the Flashpoint storyline itself, like the actual comic book, is so good. They even have an animated movie that's called the Flashpoint Paradox. That's on Max, which is really good. It's very true to how the comic book was written. Like you get to see Thomas Wayne as Batman in this universe. Like there's just so many. There's so many alternating variations that are just way more interesting in the animated version than what we got in the movie.
Yeah, it just felt long and boring, and it felt like they dragged and dropped such generic backgrounds. And it was like a desert area, no base. It was all just very like boring, and I don't know. I thought it looked bad. Yeah, it was I leaned forward at a certain point. I was like, getting tired. I was like, oh, this thing needs to just end.
And then you get like the Ezra the villain reveal at the end. It's like, that's all you got? Okay.
Yeah, I will admit that one. I didn't see that one coming until like right before it. I was like, oh, okay, that's an interesting. Okay, like that's kind of I kind of liked that a little bit, but I was so over that movie by the time that came into play that I was like, I was kind of checked out. Yeah,
that's fair. Maybe that's what it
I wouldn't say that I hate. I wouldn't say that I hated it. I just
didn't like it.
It could have been better. Didn't like it. Yeah.
I just wanted.
It was fun. Yeah,
I think it's also suffering from like I will also acknowledge that like me going into that movie, I'm also bringing along like having just seen the Spider-Verse movie, like watching like No Way Home and like all these other movies that are dealing with the multiverse. So then to see that like they have to do so much more than just impress me with the multiverse, because I'm like, okay, I already seen that done really well. What do you got? And then they're like, we got Michael Keaton. And it's like, well, technically they do too. Yeah. So.
And our universe, he's the Vulture.
Yeah.
You said did you watch Guardians and Spider-Verse?
Yeah, I saw Guardians and Spider-Verse. Yeah.
What do you think about Guardians?
I liked it. I thought it was good. Yeah, I thought maybe it was a little long, but I thought overall it definitely felt like a return to, like, that was the most recent time that I had a lot of fun with a Marvel movie in the theater, and I thought that was really, I thought it was like a solid movie. I liked a lot of the choices. It also felt kind of like I was getting really tired of everything feeling like green screen and just kind of rushed effects, and that one felt really like it felt like there was a lot of like tangible sets, and it just felt like a good story, and I liked it. I don't know if it's. I think it would place probably third in the rankings of the Guardians movie for me, but a close third. Like, it's not far down. I liked it a lot.
Interesting.
What about Spider-Verse?
That's always seen when they're fighting and they do like that.
Yeah.
That was incredible. That was great. Yeah. Oh, and then the Spider-Verse movie I thought was really great. I thought that was just beautiful. Like, the animation was incredible, and I thought that was a lot of fun. And yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Okay. Ernesto, what have you been watching?
So I don't have much. Nick, I also saw No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence, and that movie is hilarious. Like,
it's great. It's good to have like,
it's a really
good comedy. Yeah.
It's a great movie to see in the theaters. Like, I had a great theater experience. Like, people were like out loud, like not just like chuckling, but like there's some really, really funny moments there. I felt like maybe the trailer gave away like a lot of the jokes, but not. They definitely left some of the great ones for the movie. Jennifer Lawrence.
I will say I was glad I didn't watch. I watched the one trailer, and then that was a while ago, and then I purposely avoided everything else, and I think that helps.
Absolutely,
because I feel like with a comedy they're trying to sell it. Yeah, so they're going to reveal a lot of the jokes. So I'm glad I didn't do that.
But it was really, really funny. Like, really well done. Like, there's just some really outlandish scenes. Like, there's one scene where they're at the beach scene. Like, you get a little bit out in the trailer, but the rest of that scene is like fucking gold. It's so funny. Like, really, really well done. Really well done. Like, we were kind of talking like it seems to be there's like a return to these R-rated comedies, because you got this one. You have Strays that's coming out, the one where Jamie Foxx and Will Ferrell, they're dogs. Girls Trip, which is like the Asian girls hangover. Joyride. I'm sorry. Is there another one called Girls Trip?
Oh, well, there is. Yeah, with Queen Latifah and Jada Pinkett Smith. Yeah.
Same kind of vibe.
And same kind of vibe. Tiffany Haddish. Yeah, but that came out a few years ago. But yeah, this is same vibe. Joyride. Just instead of black women, it's Asian women.
Yeah. Same director. Yeah. That's the Crazy Rich Asians director. I'm actually excited to see that one. That one looks really funny.
Well, it's not the director. It's I think the producers of Crazy Rich Asians.
I keep getting emails for the advanced screenings in Winter Park for that movie.
Sorry, which one?
For Joyride.
Oh, Joyride. You still get advanced screenings for Winter Park?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And how long have you been living in California?
I don't know how to reset it. I forget that it's there until they email me and they're like, screening, and then every once in a while I just forward it to my brother who lives in Orlando.
Here you go.
There you go. This is yours.
So I saw that, and the only other thing that I've really been watching is my wife and I have been watching Yellowstone, and damn, that show's just really good. I was a little skeptical with the way that season 3 ended, because it felt like the last episode felt like a penultimate episode and not a finale episode, but it was like then season 4. But then it seems like between season 3 and 4, it was like pre and post. It's right. That's like the pandemic time of where when it was released. So it could have been because of that. But damn, that's a show. Just great writing. Great writing, great cinematography. You got Kevin Costner as the main lead. Like can't really go wrong. It's like a Western show that's kind of like The Sopranos.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, you've been raving about the show for the last couple of weeks now, but that's the first time you said it's the Western Sopranos.
Like I'm trying to, because he's trying to keep hold of his land and doing whatever he's got to do to keep that land, and they definitely don't hold back. There's just a lot of crazy shit that happens, and it's just really good character writing. It's what I think that's what I appreciate more than anything. Like there's been a few things that we've been able to call, but just in the natural progression of the show, it's been like, oh well, that's probably that's obviously what was going to happen next based off everything that's happened before. Like, so it wasn't like calling it just because it's like lazy writing, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm here for it. But we're almost done with that, and then we're gonna move on to watch the series finale of Barry, and then finally the Bear. I really want to watch the Bear season 2. Those are there's so many great summer shows that come out, but because I hook my wife onto them, so now I'm on the schedule. We're like, all right, well, when we finish this one, then we'll watch the next one. So it's like, what am I specifically watching by myself? Not much. Because I'm waiting for her.
What am I watching? Nothing. What are we watching? That's a whole different story.
Yeah, exactly. But what I did catch also finally was I caught a little bit of the first episode of My Adventures with Superman, the animated series that's on Max. It's like Jimmy Olsen and Clark Kent just starting. So far, the premise is they're just starting at the Daily Bugle, but it's kind of, the animation is kind of like anime style, like Japanese animation. So it's kind of interesting. I'm intrigued. It's if I remember correctly, I think it's Dennis Quaid who's the main lead. Like boys. Let me see if I can. But it seems like it's gonna be good. I thought they have it pitched from Adult Swim, so I thought it was going to be more of an adult content, but it seems to be like it's a PG show, like specifically for it's Jack Quaid, not but yeah, Jack Quaid from The Boys.
From The Boys.
He's
he the voice of Clark Kent?
Yeah, he's the voice of Clark Kent. And Alice Lee, I'm not sure who that is, but she's playing she plays Lois Lane.
Okay. Interesting.
It's just started. It's got a couple episodes. It looks like it looks like it'll be good. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a try. I mean, it's premiering. They premiered it at midnight on Adult Swim, but it's rated PG. So
yeah, definitely more geared to children. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. But other than that, that's all I got.
Okay. So you guys were just talking about Joyride. That out of the rated R comedies I went to go see was that one. It looked like it was going to be a fun ride. It's from one of the co-writers of Crazy Rich Asians and the producers of Neighbors, This Is the End, and Blockers. And I will say that their best stuff was in the trailer.
What?
I was really excited for this one. It looked hilarious, and it was funny. But I would argue that aside from 1 to 2 scenes, their best bits were in the trailer, and
a lot of it.
And
was
so
in
like
the
rest, and then like even like Megan and I, we walked out of the movie and we were like, yeah, it was fine. It was like, it was raunchy comedy, but it also tried to throw in heart in there. And not to saying that, I guess I wasn't expecting that much heart going into the movie. I wanted like laugh a minute. But to Nick, to your point, it's been a while since I went to the theater to see a solid comedy. Like just straight comedy. It's not an action comedy. It's not like there's always some big budget surrounding going to the theater, but it's been a really long time since they've been pushing out just comedies in general to go to the theater for. But yeah, I think that it was okay. I expected it to be a lot funnier, but I
mean, come on.
I still enjoyed it.
The beach scene when they go skinny dipping and they get their shit stolen, and she starts to fight those guys. Like she beats the shit out of those guys. That shit's funny. Like
in No Hard Feelings.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And it's funny because based off the trailer, I thought that out of the two, because we were debating on which one to see, I said, Joyride looks a little bit funnier. But I mean, they both got good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, so there's not really any tell for it. But I mean, you guys were talking more favorably than I was about Joyride, so maybe I picked the wrong movie. It sounds like.
No, I hadn't seen Joyride. I haven't seen Joyride yet. I want to see Joyride. I haven't seen it yet.
No, I know that, but it sounds like you guys picked the better movie to go watch based on what you guys were saying about No Hard Feelings.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you see No Hard Feelings or did you see Joyride?
No, I saw Joyride. That's what I was saying.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I misheard you. That's why I'm like, you didn't see you didn't like it. Sorry. I thought you said you saw No Hard Feelings and it wasn't that funny. I was like, were you watching the same movie? Because it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry.
For clarification, Joyride. I saw Joyride, and I feel like you guys picked the better movie for seeing No Hard Feelings because I wasn't too thrilled with. I mean, I thought Joyride was fine, but I feel like some of the best parts were in the trailer. But I do plan on seeing No Hard Feelings in the theater because I've been hearing a lot of great things about it.
It's worth the watch. It's really funny. But it also has some heart too. Like there is some heart that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a storyline that there's a general through line in it. I think I thought they tied it together really well within the film.
Yeah,
and I feel it. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, leaving the theater. Also, that was the same day, so I saw The Flash that morning, and then I saw No Hard Feelings that night. Just could not be more opposite theater experiences. But the leaving the theater for No Hard Feelings was just so much fun. I remember like just thinking that was like such a blast. Like you said, to just have a packed theater of people just laughing out loud was just such a fun experience. It was so much. Yeah, it was so great. It was. I recommend seeing it in the theater if you can.
And I feel like walking out of Joyride, he's like, I've seen this movie before. That's kind of what I walked out of it. It's like you gave me the same raunchy story beats, and I did laugh at some of them. Like it was still a funny movie, and I recommend people to go watch it. But I feel like in a way I've seen this movie before, just with a different,
I'll be interested to see what you think of No Hard Feelings then, because it's not necessarily that they're like reinventing the wheel per se, but I just they nailed exactly what they were aiming for. And the kid, who is incredible. I had no idea who he was before, but I thought he did. Like, talk about just subtle comedic acting, and his timing was so, like, there were moments where he could have played it off more of like a kind of like that Disney Channel style, but like he was so subtle and so good and calculated. He was really great. I think I'm really curious to see what he ends up going on to do.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah, and so it's funny because like you're going off like the main draw for her for that movie was Jennifer Lawrence, and then you got a surprise actor roll out of it.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
And then for me, like Ashley Park, she's very popular in Emily in Paris, and you have Stephanie Hsu, who was an Academy Award nominee for Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I figured between their comedic timing, and it was still funny, like I said. But like I said, it sounds like that you guys saw the better movie than what I walked out of. So I'm very curious now to kind of measure up between the two rated R comedies that we have to offer right now. kind of toying to this similar audience. Unfortunately, both of those movies did not do well in the box office, but I feel like it's hard to get a raunchy comedy up there on the box office when you're trying to compete with big blockbusters during a summer season. But yeah, I do recommend people to go watch Joyride. I did enjoy it. I just feel like it's a movie I've seen, and I also feel like some of the best stuff was already in the trailer. So there's that, and then the last thing that we've been watching is that we are 8 episodes deep into Seth Rogen's Rose Byrne's Platonic. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Ernesto, Apple TV has done it again. We watched the first 6 episodes in a day. Damn. And then we watched 7 and 8 the night, and then the only reason why we didn't finish it because the finale at the time of this recording is tomorrow, and Megan's like, I want to watch the last 2 together. So we stopped at 9 and we'll watch the last 2 tomorrow. But it's funny. It's really good. I have it, like, Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne have been they're killing. I mean, they were together in Neighbors, but they're just kind of keeping that streak going with their kind of on-screen presence in Platonic. And it's kind of just playing with the idea of, like, can friends, like, can a man and a woman be friends and have no sexual desire with each other, and how weird does it feel like with everybody else, like at an adult age of like mid-40s, or like I guess like late 30s, early 40s, and like you can't have friends like that anymore. Like typically you're always associated with your partner, or like your friend group is associated with your partner. Can you have friends? Can you have a friends of the opposite sex, and then without ever having it be sexual at all? It's like you're just generally, we just like being friends with this person, and it just makes you feel happy. But outside of a social norm, it doesn't seem like that should be happening. Like you had to have had some sort of sexual relationship for you to have this close of a relationship, and I think this show is trying to say that that's not always the case. So okay. We've been really enjoying the show. Like I said, Apple TV, they rarely produce misses, and every show that I've started on there, I've been enjoying on Apple TV Plus.
I'm really looking forward to Lakeith Stanfield. I just saw a poster for it. He's got a show coming to Apple TV Plus called The Changeling that I have no idea what it's about, but it's got him. He's the main lead, so I'm here for it. Well, also, haven't you been watching Secret Invasion? Are you still watching that? Are you still up to date on Secret Invasion?
I am watching that actually.
Yeah. I think at the time of this recording, episode 3 dropped. I wasn't a fan of episode 3 as I was the first 2 episodes.
You raved about the first 2 episodes. You loved them.
I did. We took a small dip in episode 3, in my opinion, but so far I still like where we're going with this. So I'm still on board. Nick, what are your thoughts on Secret Invasion?
Yeah, I think I've kind of built up like a hesitancy when it comes to like the Marvel TV shows, and I didn't finish Moon Knight. I didn't watch Ms. Marvel, but I'm liking it. I think also it's falling victim to I'm sure just budget constraints with a show versus a movie and stuff, but it does feel like it's falling victim to a vague cargo area and people on phone, and that's like how they're kind of getting through, and like everything's just sort of that scene over and over again. But I will say, like Samuel Jackson is great, and I think is carrying a lot of that. And I think it's like Don Cheadle, and then what's his name? Is it Ben Mendelsohn? Is that?
Yes, I believe that's his name.
Okay, those 3.
What's that? Ben Mendelsohn. Yeah, that's Talos.
Yeah, those 3 are obviously just great actors, and I think that they carry it. So like it's still engaging, and I'm like interested, and I'm curious to see where it goes. And the premise of Secret Invasion, I think, is so great, and I'm a little bummed that it's not maybe a little better, given like how great and cool this story is. Mm-hmm. But I'm on board for now, and I'll keep watching because I'm curious. But it does feel like it's like the premise of Secret Invasion, I feel like it's kind of a bummer that it's just being tossed to a series on Disney Plus, because it feels like it could be like this really epic either miniseries or series of movies maybe or something, but it just feels like it's not maybe being as treated as on such a big scale that maybe it could be. But it's okay though.
Yeah, I feel like this is like and I discussed this last week, like the prelude of what something bigger could happen in the future. Like this is our prologue to it, like our introduction to it. But then it could have larger implications and larger effects in the MCU in the future, but not necessarily right now. So that's my guess anyway.
Oh, I actually hope that's the case, because that would be cool. Because I just feel like with a premise like this, I want to be like, I kind of want to feel like this is maybe not the best comparison, but when we were watching The Last of Us week to week, and like each episode just kind of ends with like this little bit of like a kind of a twist or like some sort of added element that's just like, oh man, it keeps you coming back. Like this just doesn't. I want like a premise like this to feel really kind of twisty and turny and like, wow, like it's just on the edge of your seat. And I just haven't really felt that yet, but maybe that'll happen.
Maybe, and I'm hoping it does, because I do feel like that it's not edge of my seat, but there's a few things I didn't see coming so far. So I can appreciate.
I do agree with that. Yeah, there has been a couple moments where I was like, that's kept me going.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all we've been watching. So now we're going to be diving into our spoiler review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So Nick, we'll start with you. How did Harrison Ford do his last outing as Indiana Jones?
I think Harrison Ford did a great job. I think he was, like, given his age, incredible. I thought very vibrant, great, energetic. It was awesome. I think, personally, the movie as a whole, not necessarily great, in my opinion. But so I went in thinking, like, I knew it was not going to touch the original trilogy, just because those movies were made in a different era. That's also had, like, my entire life building up an expectation for what a sequel might be for that, because I didn't see Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in theaters. I was like a little too young, I guess, at that time, and so growing up with the original three and just adoring those movies to no end, I went into this movie acknowledging that it wasn't going to be that, but maybe still, like an installment that felt kind of connected in that way. And I got really excited when James Mangold got attached, because in my mind, the guy who directed Logan would be a great idea for the person that did the last Indiana Jones movie, simply because it's an aging hero and somebody that's probably past his prime and dealing with like his own mortality. And like, I was hoping for a Logan-esque Indiana Jones adventure that was maybe a little smaller, a little more contained, and just given Harrison Ford's age. And it wasn't that, and like that's also partially on me for kind of going in with at least a idea of what I was hoping to see Indy's last ride be. So I was a little disappointed when it felt instead of grounding it a little bit more and focusing on more of like a character piece with Indy, it felt more like they just found other ways to cheat the age with like, okay, well, he'll be in a vehicle all the time and he'll be like kind of going from like a motorcycle to a car to a thing. He won't be running around as much. And it just felt like there was a lot of like CGI where I didn't feel like it needed to be. And I was hoping it would be much more of basically, long story short, wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. I think overall it was a fine movie, but there were moments where I had to remind myself that it was an Indiana Jones movie. Like when he was riding on the horse in the subway, I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like neat. But there was moments where it just like didn't necessarily feel like an Indiana Jones movie. Like and upon rewatching Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, even though that might not be as good as the original three, I do think rewatching that one, I like that one more and more. And I would put that maybe around just below Temple of Doom for me, with like 3 and 1 being at the top at the list. And Crystal Skull still feels like an Indiana Jones movie to me, but this one just felt like sort of a generic action movie where they happen to have a character with a hat and a whip. And I think it felt like they redid a lot of the same story beats that they did with Indy's son in the fourth one, obviously with the new character Helena, I think her name is.
Yeah.
Helena. And I just felt like if you're going to kill off the son and then do the same kind of beats again with a new character, that just didn't feel, I don't know. A lot of it just didn't really work for me per se. And it felt a little long and just kind of a little too generic, which maybe is too harsh a criticism for a thing that originated from being sort of just a fun, generic adventure movie. But I didn't, and I had my fears after, because I feel like you guys, we've also talked about this before, where there was the rumors that time travel was going to be involved with an Indy movie. And I will say, I was worried about that because I was like, this is not going to fit. The way that they did time travel in this movie, I think is probably the best version that they could do time travel in an Indiana Jones movie.
I agree.
Agreed.
Justifying, yeah. Because I was worried it was going to be like a DeLorean, and it was not going to work, you know? And
hold on, Nick. Hold on. If a DeLorean popped up in Indiana Jones, I would have, like, my one hat would have been like my Indy cap, right? Whatever he's wearing, fedora. It would be like, well, that doesn't work. That's not an Indiana Jones movie. That's like, why the fuck would they do that? But my 2015 rainbow colored Hills Valley Back to the Future hat, I was like, no, they fucking did not. Let's go to the future, baby. Indian Dock and Adventures. Give me an animated series on that. Disney Plus, all of that. But anyway, sorry. Go on.
No, that's I just thought, I was worried it was going to be like a machine. You know, it was going to like zap them into the future or whatever. And I was like, I just could not picture that in that world. So the way that they justified it, I will say, is the best version I think that they could have done if they were going to do time travel. And I also liked that they really held on to that. Like, they didn't fully tell you that was going to happen throughout the movie until the very end. Yeah. I'm still processing and figuring out how I feel about that ending, but it just felt like, as for a hero and character that I have just loved and dressed up as a kid and just adored, and granted probably put too much pressure on, you know, another installment of the franchise, it didn't feel like the send-off that I was really hoping for. And it didn't feel like it utilized the Indy's last adventure. He's old now, not as young as he used to be, wrestling with maybe some of his past and all. And instead, it felt like they would occasionally hint at that with dialogue, and then just go back to fighting off CGI eels. And but anyway, that's my whole long spiel. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think.
Ernesto?
It was okay. Like, it was fine. Like, I felt like a lot of the movie, like, there were people around me who were going, oh, did you know this is from this and this and this and that? So it felt like a lot of the movie was like a lot of homage to like previous characters and previous set and just previous things that have happened. Like sometimes they'll linger on a shot and then the music will swell. I go, is that like, I'm like, oh, that must be important. Like, people must really care about that right there. Like, so it felt like a lot of that. Like, it kind of felt like a backdoor pilot for Helena. Like for Phoebe Waller-Bridges' character, like, they've obviously opened it so that she can continue on the legacy of Indiana Jones. But I wanted, I don't know. I think I just wanted more. Like, it just, like, the chase scene in, I guess, where were they, in Egypt? Like, it was kind of boring. I don't know. It was here.
Yeah.
Like I vaguely remember it. The one I really liked was the one you mentioned where they're it's the ticker tape parade for the Apollo 11, and he's riding through the street. Like, I thought that was a cool scene. Indiana Jones, like, you kind of get him climbing through a cave, but then it's like, do you think that 80-year-old man could really climb up there? It's like, I don't know, Indy. I don't know. I don't know. We got way too much CGI. I share a lot of same sentiments with you, and that's interesting because you like you as like somebody who beloves this franchise, like, you almost want to love this movie, knowing that.
Oh, I was wanting to love it so hard.
Like, that's what. So, like, I could see you guys like wanting to justify like all the things like that maybe other people have issues with. Usually, people tend to like, well, it was fine because this is send off, like almost like trying to justify why things didn't work out. But even like I feel like there wasn't enough there to even justify that. But I also agree with you about the time travel stuff. My thing is, I wish that he had died. If they had left him to die in the past, I felt like that would have been a good send off. Like somebody who spends his life studying the past, he gets to live out his final days in the past with one of history's greatest philosophers. Like, what a better way to end your story and like feel like you got a better understanding like of your life's work. Like, to me, that would have been a much better ending than the Disney Channel ending that we got at the end. Like, that's how I attribute it to. Like, literally, it's like an open scene. You hear the music playing, like coming up, and then he reaches out to the clothesline and grabs his hat, and that's the end of the movie.
Which was also an interesting choice too, because it's not like they've done that in the other ones. Like, they don't end with a little circle or the and that was like, I was like, all right, Bugs Bunny. It feels interesting. Yes. It's yeah. I also, to your point, Ernesto, they really focused on Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who, again, I think is talented,
correct,
and does a great job for his last movie, and also with the idea that part of the marketing campaign was also Indy's last ride. This is the last of the franchise. Felt weird to be really pushing a lot on that character that at least I didn't really care about. I was excited to see Indiana Jones, and it felt like they were really pushing her a lot, and that felt weird for one that should be, because as far as I know, they're not necessarily going to pass the torch, and they kind of did that with his son in the fourth one, so it's that didn't seem necessary because we've already seen Indy go through that arc where the mind of his kid that he didn't know was fully his kid in the beginning, and then kind of like they don't get along at first, and then kind of learn to appreciate and respect each other's, approaches to how they figure out puzzles or whatever. And that was, I felt like, very reminiscent. That her sidekick, I was like, that's not a fan. Annoying.
Like I felt like that was a shoehorned character. Like, I felt like they tried too hard to push this little kid on. It took me a minute to even realize that she was with him. I was like, why is he stopping him? Why is this little kid stopping him from walking into the store?
My guess is I would imagine that was
yeah, he was there for that.
So Ernesto, you made a lot of good points here, and I feel like I'm about to do one of them. You mentioned that because this is Indy's last ride, we are going to tend, as fans of the franchise, we're things because like this movie can't be bad, right? Well, I mean, if you think about this, then this really makes sense to that whole spiel.
So that's what you're about to do.
But here's my problem with. Well, I'm gonna do a little bit of that. But I feel like my biggest problem with this movie is it doesn't feel anything.
Yes, I agree.
Like, there was no attached to anything that was happening in the movie, literally. And I don't think it's the fault of our own. I'm gonna blame on the marketing here, because you are pitching these last adventure, Harrison Ford's last times. This movie was not that. This was Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones again. This was not Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones for the last time. There was no way that I felt anything about Indy. Like, I wasn't afraid that he was I wasn't feeling any type of emotion to I was waiting to cry, waiting for the tearing up moment. I was like, damn, Ford, you did well. And the fact that this whole movie felt like a missed opportunity on a lot of fronts. A lot of fronts of just, making this Indy's last adventure. Okay, so you didn't include Short Round in the movie. Why? Why would you not include especially one's hot streak with Everything Everywhere All at Once? I feel like you could have put him in the end when, as from the future, that he, that when Harrison Ford woke up and you saw Sallah there, and then you get the reveal of Marion at the end, you're telling me that Short Round couldn't just come around the corner and say, "Hey, Dr. Jones." I was like, come on. Like, it's simple. It's simple as that. I didn't need him in the whole movie, but you could have done as easy as that's like being. Like, I heard you were going through some. You heard your son died. I heard something, and the fact that they ended it with Mac at the end of the movie, as this whole movie was kind of predicated off grieving his son. His life was not what it used to be. We had elements of him feeling the pressure. I'm kind of catching up with him. He's not as nimble as he used to be. He's not going at as ventures he used to be. He's not at the he used to be. It felt like he was teaching at a community college, and he was going into retirement, and he was about to live his days, and he's going through a divorce, and his son died in the war. And like, you can see the impact of him and the divorce with his son dying. And then Marion comes back and was like, "Are you back, Indy?" Like, what? Where the hell were you this whole movie? Coming back from what? He just came back from the future. He didn't did him coming back was like, "Oh, are we good now? Are we about to have a relationship?" Nowhere in this movie kind of nowhere in this movie was their relationship. So the fact that they ended on like, "Hey, are you good now? I've been waiting for you this whole time." It's like, no, that's not the vibe I'm getting. Is Indiana Jones back? Of course he's not. He's 80 years old. Another one. It's not happening. So it's like, there are just a few things that were for me as a fan. It's like, you had it. Like, what are we doing here? It was also, right there.
Your point with Short Round, in real life, he's only become an action star, which makes so much sense to then put him into and now he's even more equipped to be in an action movie.
Yes. And
he's won the Academy Award for acting. So it's such an...
Also, like, hell, give him the whip and the hat and have him Indiana Jones.
All for it. And then with Marion, that's the same arc that they did in the fourth one, where they implied that they grew apart, and then they reconcile at the end and they come back together. That was the exact same thing they did during that one. And in this one, they just, because she's in at the end, and then, like you said, "Are you back?" And it's like, no, to your point, he's not. This is not, like, why are we doing the same? It felt like a huge missed opportunity. I completely agree.
But then back to what Ernesto was saying, now I'm going to do some justifications here. There were some redeeming elements in this movie. Granted, it was a little bit jarring with the visual effect when you see the de-aging Harrison Ford. And also, I was surprised of how long that scene was. Yeah. It was 25 minutes. I was like, damn, we are really spending a lot of time with young Harrison Ford. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? When I look past it, I don't even, like, it's not even bothering me anymore that it's like a de-age. I'm just enjoying the ride, right? Indiana Jones, pow, boom, like on a train. Like, honestly, I would have watched the whole movie like that. Like, I think I got used to it in a sense of when the action was kicking in, I was okay with the visual effects on that front. So, like, that introduction to our MacGuffin, which is, I don't even remember the name. I'm calling the Dial of Destiny, but there's another name for it. There you go. And so, like, that was fine. And then you get to the middle part where
Anti-Takara. That's what it's called.
Anti-Takara. No wonder why I didn't remember it. And so, like, so that part was cool. And then, all right, then you have him, trying to go in through retirement and everything. And then, I don't know, the adventure part of it didn't feel as thrilling as I wanted it to be. Like to Ernesto's point, there was a lot of action in there, which I enjoyed quite a bit of it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so how long is he be on a horse? He's going through a parade in the city, and then he's in the subway, and he's hit by a train, and these buggies and these motorcycles, and he's just jumping back and forth. And then, Like there was a lot of like that like action that felt really long. The action felt long, and I felt like we were focusing more on the action than we were of just like solving puzzles. Like I feel like that's the easiest thing you can do Harrison Ford to 80s. Have him sit in a tomb and say, that's the way we need to go. Instead, he's riding horses, he's jumping off of tuk-tuks, he's going down the submarine to say hi to Antonio Banderas, who had a brief 2-second cameo in there. As like Antonio Banderas, a 2-minute cameo in the movie he has nothing to do with, but then we can't give Short Round a 2-minute cameo of something that he's loved his appearance in. Like hell, they gave more time to Antonio Banderas than they did with Sala and his cameo in the movie as well. Venture a little bit more than he was, but even though it was kind of satisfying to kind of hear where now, so to speak. Like he's like, oh, Indy helped my family migrate to America. It's like, okay, that's a nice little nugget. Like that's some fan service there. I like that. But yeah, and then even going back to like the car chasing scene and how much that didn't really make much sense. They threw a love triangle situation for Helen or Helena and like that guy that was chasing them.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so it's like you're telling me that the CIA and Mads Mikkelsen was not enough of a chase. We had to put in a third element in the movie, which made zero sense at all. We don't ever make any reference to it again. It just shows that Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character was just a bad person. That's all that showcased. It's like she was not. I can't think of any other reason why include that in the movie.
Yeah, I also, with the series of chase sequences, it's weird that, like, with Harrison Ford being as old as he's ever been, in this movie, there's arguably more movement happening on screen than there are in some of the other Indiana Jones movies, where it's like things are happening and there's maybe 1 or 2 actual chase sequences. And then there's, like, fights and stuff that happen. But this movie was, like, I think way more active than it needed to be as far as like they were just like, oh yeah, any type of vehicle pointed to be, let's just whiz by stuff. I also think what's fun with the Indiana Jones movies are all the different locations they go to and like how different and iconic those are. I can't remember where they went in this movie. It just felt like vague marketplace. But like when you think back, it's like, oh, the Venice Canal boat chase sequence, and then like when they're in Cairo and like all these different areas. Like I can see it, the map in my head. But I don't, and maybe this is just me, but I couldn't tell you all the different spots they went to. I know they went kind of like around Greece-ish, maybe, but
Syracuse, Italy. But that was even.
Oh, Italy.
Yeah. And then you have the time travel of it all, and it's funny after everything that we've talked about in this, for our review, the time travel element seems the less crazy out of everything we've talked about before. And you would think that would be the one that would bother me the most. It's like, oh, Indiana Jones time traveling, forget that. But like I think to your point, they teed it up as well as they could if that's the direction we were going. I even liked it that's what he was teaching at the beginning of the movie when he was at his community college. And then there was like a puppet show when they went to Italy of like Romans, and then you see like this dragon, and this Roman was fighting the dragon. So then when you get to that moment, for me, it was kind of unexpected. Like in my movie, you would go back to a point of 2 things. One, classic Indiana Jones scene, or something along those lines that actually had some meaning to it, to the audience. Or because they already teed it up, he did say that if there was one thing he can go back and change was to prevent his son from enlisting in the war. So maybe that would have, at the time, giving him an opportunity to travel through time to maybe stop his son from doing it, and maybe having a different outcome, or maybe having the choice of like, do I stop my son from doing it, or do I let the world just be, and that's what it is, and maybe him not stopping his son from enlisting was able for him to kind of, get over not get over it, but like help with his grieving process. Like something along those lines that felt me for the character. The only time that I actually felt anything for Indiana Jones was when he was in the moment. And I feel like this is like some of the only time I've ever seen Harrison Ford smile in this movie was when he was seeing history before his eyes. And he was looking at it and was like, wow, this is what actually happened. We were right. History was right. I spent my entire life chasing relics from history, and now I get to witness it in like with my own eyes. And to Ernesto's point, what better way to end the franchise were to leave him in there where he is finishing out his days in history.
Yeah.
But instead we cut to black and we don't even see how he gets back home.
Yeah. We're like, yeah, it's fine. You just know he makes
it. It is also, when you think about it, because it is weird how not crazy that all feels. Like we're talking about it because it's like, yeah, because it's like if they had to do time travel, it's I think they did it the best they can. It is wild because that would be the equivalent of at the end of The Last Crusade with the cup, he then talks to Jesus and he then like goes back and then it's like, oh my gosh, this is your cup. Sorry, and like that would be I don't know about you, when I was sitting in the theater and then they went through, because I thought as the plane was ramping up to like the little fissure in time, I was like, oh, I wonder if, because then he's like, oh, you didn't calculate for this. And I was like, oh, they're going to let the audience wonder if it would even have worked. And then they're going to like veer off and they're not going to do it. And then they go through it. And I'm like, interesting. I wonder. And then I was just sitting there and I could not believe what I was seeing on screen. I was kind of in shock. Like when they went back and then you start to realize that it's like ancient times. I did not see that coming in a million years. I could not have predicted that. And then Archimedes walks up and I'm like, that whole moment, I was just kind of like, it felt like a fever dream. I was not, this is an Indiana Jones movie. It's just very, that was an experience.
I feel like, to Ernesto's point, it would have meant everything if he stayed.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of the time travel aspect of this movie would have meant something, would have been justified if he had stayed in history. Because we weren't, and no point in this movie was at the end the result was like, oh, we got to repair the damage of my divorce. Like,
right.
Like we weren't leading to that at all. We were kind of just like, honestly, now that I think of it, we weren't leading to anything in this movie. It was just Indy going on another adventure that it wasn't really his. It was Helena's adventure.
Yeah. And looking back of like the expectation of like, because I was really just hoping for maybe just a less dark version of Logan with Indiana Jones, and that satisfying end you have with Wolverine's character and like the putting like then just moving the branches so it forms the X over the like it's just so poetic and perfect for that character, and it's like bittersweet, and he like sacrificed himself for and they did it in a way where it didn't feel like they were constantly trying to set up these young mutants. They felt like they were really giving the character of Logan a farewell, and this one felt like they just at every turn were pushing it way more on Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and you were there to see Indiana Jones's last adventure, and it really felt like you said, Matt, like I think a missed opportunity. Because they have the ingredients there, and obviously the director, talented, Harrison Ford, very much game. They brought a lot of the people back. I also think not having Short Round was such a loss. But
I think as far as expectations that we kind of presented onto the movie is everything you just said. Like so Steven Spielberg is not directing for whatever reason because he wanted to do West Side Story, which was a dumb reason to do, and that's fine. He wants to create a musical instead of making one of the best, movie characters of all time. Whatever, it's fine. It's fine. So he backs down the directing role, gives it to James Mangold. In my head, it's like, you know what? This is great. He just came off of Logan for the most part, and then later he came out with Ford v Ferrari, and I was like, that movie was amazing. Like, I feel like that movie should have won Best Picture. Actually, Parasite won that year. That's fine. I take that back. But Ford v Ferrari was amazing, and then his next movie was Indiana Jones. Like, hell yeah! And you come off of Logan, which was, like you said, so poetic, so like a beautiful ending to this character that we've all, loved throughout, 2 decades. This one is 4 decades. So now I feel like the pressure was even more on, and basically as the audience, we're like, just do Logan again. That's all we're asking. Just do Logan again.
How is it
Just
that
with
hard?
Indiana Jones?
Like a
Yeah.
ground, almost indie movie, like as an independent. Like he made it feel like a superhero movie that felt real
Yeah.
and practical, which is
Right.
the old Indiana Jones movies. Like they all used practical sets and stuff, so and set pieces, so it felt pretty grounded.
And then on top of that, you have, the last indie film that Steven Spielberg directed wasn't that favorable. So maybe you put a new fresh of eyes in there, and Harrison Ford agreed to come back to put himself into more pain in his old age. and he was like, he's like, I'll do this. Like, you got back the guy. So like, okay, let's do this. And apparently, the actress who plays Marion, they said that around one of the first drafts that Marion was in the movie a lot more. In the second draft, she was cut drastically up until just now a cameo role, which she said she was quite surprised with, of like how much she was like, oh man, I'm kind of bummed out about that because originally I was in it a lot more. So now it's come to think about it, it's just like, okay, so where did the problem lie? Obviously it's with the story. So like, how many cooks were in the kitchen to kind of dwindle this movie from what it was? Or is it Lucasfilm where they really just like, we got to push the de-aging for some reason? Nobody asked for that much de-aging of Harrison Ford for 25 minutes in a 2.5 hour movie. You could have given us a 5-minute version of that, and that's fine. Or you could have utilized it to an effective way that we were going back in time and you see a younger Harrison Ford to that effect, since we're already playing with time. That would have been fine too. But I don't know. Somewhere along the lines, we've lost the focus of what the story felt like it was supposed to be. And I blame the marketing, and honestly, it's like a little bit of both. Marketing, because you were marketing this as Indy's last adventure, but also fans' expectation of kind of like, hey, you got James Mangold in this, and you got Harrison Ford, and even Williams is returning in his old age of 90 to redo a score. So it felt like this resounding finale of a classic character, and it just didn't do that.
And you didn't have that classic indie moment where he's like about to lose it all and he's getting beaten. Granted, like, he can't be wrestling at his age, but like that moment where you just like, you can feel the music about to kick in, and then he just like that, but the skin of his teeth just like barely gets by. They didn't really like have that moment. And then to your point earlier, like I was watching it and like I just didn't feel anything. And then it wasn't until the very end when the credits rolled where they actually let the classic indie music kick in, where I was like, oh, where was that during the movie? Like,
right.
They didn't have that. I was waiting for that moment for that, just the music to kick in and like the theme to just like blast it. They didn't do it until the credits rolled. And I was like, oh, that was when I felt something where I was like, oh, that reminds me of the other Indiana Jones movies.
and it's weird to think about it because like for the last 15 years, people were giving shit to Crystal Skull. And now 15 years later, you're like, you know what? Now that I think about it, and now I have something to compare it to, it really wasn't that bad of a movie. Like, it wasn't amazing. It wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as we were calling it in 2008. Because now we're looking at 2023. I was like, maybe that was the better ending for Indy. It felt like it meant a little bit more that he married the love of his life at the end of Crystal Skull instead of recovering through a divorce after he went through time. I don't know that getting married.
I think it's a better ending. I agree. I do think it is. I think that is a more fitting for the character, and like the way that movie ends, I think is great. I think it could be better, but I think when compared to this, I think that is better.
So even going further, looking at the box office results, this movie cost $295 million before marketing, meaning that this is an over $300 million project. And the de-aging has a lot to do with that. The movie made $60 million opening weekend.
Yeah.
That's not good return. No. I mean, I'm just doing simple math here. That doesn't, I don't know, I'm not sure how much the movie has made so far, like worldwide box office, but I mean, Nick, what do you feel the reason why people didn't come out to see Indy's Last Adventure?
I think what happened was, my theory is that they are dealing with a franchise that's beloved by many, however, is not necessarily in the zeitgeist, like currently. Like it's not in pop culture as far as like a relevant, like Star Wars is cranking out shows, Marvel's like very much, chugging along. But I feel like Indiana Jones's audience skews maybe older as far as the like love for the original movies. And I don't think like the original trilogy has as much of a adopted love from newer generations as like Star Wars might have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it has an uphill battle as far as audience reach anyways. Like if Lucasfilm is looking at their properties, like Indiana Jones, wildly popular, but it's just not going to ever touch Star Wars, I don't think, as far as popularity and like, global knowledge of it. But I think they needed to make a really great movie that happened to be Indiana Jones. And instead they made a really generic movie that happened to be Indiana Jones. And I think that's just not going to bring people in. I don't think the character was, I think the character is popular enough that if this movie was great, it would spread a lot quicker. And it wouldn't be a slow burn where like it takes word of mouth to like really build up a movie no one's heard about. But like if this movie was great, people would be like, oh my gosh, yeah, the new indie movie is incredible. Then everyone would go see it. And I think they were hoping for a like Top Gun Maverick effect, where it's like this movie that people know about, but and is popular to some degree, but like is not necessarily huge currently, and then blow it out of proportion and just kill it. And I think that it's such a generic kind of forgettable action CGI movie in and amongst a bunch of other movies coming out this summer as well, that I just feel like it didn't have any reason for people to then you're going to get all the people that are going to go see it for Indiana Jones right off the bat. And then there was no reason for them to recommend it, I think, to anybody else or to bring anybody to, see it a second time. That's my theory, I think.
So,
I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, looking at the current numbers right now, it's done 125 million domestically, 127 million internationally. So it's actually doing better overseas than it is here. Worldwide, they've only made 252 million.
Okay, so that's within its second week, and we're about to hit big box office juggernauts like Mission Impossible, Oppenheimer, and Barbie. So, yeah. So, like, the second week, like, India had 2 weeks to make back their money, or otherwise it's not going to have, like, I think in its second week it made 20-something million, if I'm not mistaken, like, domestically. I think, like, let me see here. It made, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. It made $26.5 million in its second weekend. And now you're saying, well, I'm sorry, what was the total worldwide gross right now?
252 million.
Okay, so it may be close to breaking even, but they still need to make at least another 100 to 150 to possibly break even.
Yeah, or to even make any kind of profit off of it. They're still right in the negative. That's unfortunate, and they're going into week 3.
Yeah, and they're not. I mean, just like The Flash, which had a horrible opening weekend. That movie is. I think it just passed 100 million in its own right. But yeah, I don't know. And then also, so let's talk about the future now. So just based on, I remember reading about this, but there was some chatter of developing a spin-off series on Disney Plus. But when talking to James Mangold, who reveals an update on their series, and he said, I looked at what they were developing for that show, and I think it was, hold on, I'm sorry. I looked at what they were developing for that show, but I think it was purely speculative in terms of whether that show was going to happen and going to be made. But James Mangold had nothing to do with the Indiana Jones series. He was classifying as that it was the world, but it was also not. So I guess whatever they were doing for Indiana Jones, it didn't seem like anything that he was involved in, and it is confirmed that Disney Plus scrapped that project. So they're no longer making a spin-off of the Indiana Jones franchise. But Ernesto, I'll ask you this question. I mean, I don't feel like Disney and Lucasfilm is going to let this property die. So with Indiana Jones moving forward in the future, like, what would you do with this franchise?
Given what they did, I mean, the natural progression is the adventures with Helena, like, and whatever that looks like, because she's gonna be the next. Excuse me. Oh, she's the next phase of Indiana Jones, and whoever that little kid is gonna be her little right hand, and they're gonna do their adventures together. But really, they should just end it. Like, don't do any more, because now I throw it back to you guys as like hardcore indie fans. Like, do you feel that this ending dilutes the quality of the franchise?
Nick, I'll ask you to answer first.
I feel like I'm good at blocking things out if I need to when it comes to like movie franchises. Like, as like some of the Marvel movies come out, will never tarnish the like end game like series. You know what I mean? Like, that will always be great to me, and I don't think that even if those get bad, that's not going to ruin it for me. I think with this one, it's even like, I'm not even a huge fan of Temple of Doom per se. Like, I think it's a great like classic movie, but in my mind, honestly, I find a lot of satisfaction in that you can watch 1 and 3, and it is a great like 2-movie series, because you don't need the prequel at all, and you can watch those two, and I think those are phenomenal movies, and they work great together, and those are the most similar, I think, in tone. And that works. And I think because in my brain I've been doing that with Temple of Doom and Crystal Skull a little bit, that it's not really that different. So it's not like this is the first full miss for me. Like, it's not like this was the first slight misstep in a series of otherwise perfect movies. So I don't think it ruins it. But I do think it's a huge disappointment, because I think with Crystal Skull, if they had planned, because initially I think they did plan on that really being the end, to then know that they had 15 years to then try it again if they wanted to, was kind of encouraging, but you know that they can't do that now, and that's what's disappointing. So I don't think it ruins the series, but it's a big bummer to know just logistically it's impossible to now make another movie where you really get to send that character off well.
I think Nick said it best there. I think the fact that I feel like a lot of people felt that Crystal Skull was the end. So for the last 15 years, we were just like, these are the 4 movies. These are the 4 indie movies, and this is what it is. And Crystal Skull wasn't a great ending, but it was an ending that was fine. And even throughout the years before Dial of Destiny came out, people were warming up to the idea of Crystal Skull. And even on my rewatch, I felt like, you know what? It wasn't terrible. It's still not my favorite, but it wasn't, there were some redeeming qualities to it. And you got Marion back, and the trying to throw in some family elements to it. It was still a fun ride, though. Some things were ridiculous, like him jumping into a fridge when it was being nuked, and Shia LaBeouf swinging with monkeys. That was dumb. But, we also got Aliens, which not my choice, but hey, it kind of works for the adventure, whatever. And then he gets married at the end. Like, okay, it's all wrapped up there, and nice little bow for the most part. The bow is not as neat as like other people would tie it, but it's there, it's kind of there. And then, like, to your point, we had 15 years to simmer on that, and people were already saying that Crystal Skull was the worst. So in your head, it's like, well, it can't be worse than the Crystal Skull. So that's already an uphill battle right there. And I'm not saying the movie necessarily is, but to your point, the missed opportunity and what feels like we can't use it as another misstep. This is the end. We can't be like, well, this is just another bad apple for Indy. Can't wait for the next one, because Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, unless he starts filming it today, it's not happening. Like it's just, and also you built all this marketing up to be like, this is Indy's last ride. So it's kind of makes it feel a little convoluted to be like, never mind, we were joking. It's actually not his one, because that one sucked. So we're going to give you another one that we think is going to be better. And so like it just doesn't fit. So for me, the only logical thing, because I personally feel like Lucasfilm's not gonna let this franchise die. Like there's no way.
How do you, what other than Indiana Jones in the Indiana Jones universe, how do you make that in universe other than just the fact that maybe you mention his name every once in a while? Can it be any more than that? Because it's like it's just going to be an adventure series at that point. Because there's not like a world in which you're like, yeah, that is so distinct to that. You know what I mean?
Honestly, the best thing to do is a hard reset. You just reboot it.
What do you mean? Like
you just
redo it, like the Young Advent. Like the only way I could see it is like if you do like the Young Adventures of Indy, and it's like another actor who's playing a younger Harrison Ford.
Not having Harrison Ford, and people would be okay with it because it's like, well, he couldn't be 12. Yeah.
There's only so much de-aging we can do to Harrison Ford.
No, I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying, like, in my head, Indiana Jones is similar to James Bond. Throughout 50 plus, is it 50 years? Multiple decades of the character of James Bond. James Bond was a moniker. It was like James Bond as a character, he did certain things, he acted a certain way, but aside from the Daniel Craig movies, none of them connected in any way. We just had the same James Bond. And then when they were done with him, they moved on to a different actor, and it was a different adventure with James Bond. So in my head, if you were to, I feel like that's the best course of action, to be like, you have the moniker of Indiana Jones, and this is just the next adventure with Indiana Jones. Because how many adventures that Indiana Jones talk about that we never saw in this franchise?
So you think a way of getting around that is not having Harrison Ford or anybody who looks like Harrison Ford, but you just have like a generic character who we call Indiana Jones? I don't know. No.
I can't see any other way to kind of go off of how this one ended.
Because he's done. They've hit a literal endpoint because of his age. So they only have a few, and he is Indiana Jones. See, because like 007, it's not like we didn't really learn about his backstory. Like it's more of like it's more of like the mission and what's going on, and whoever the girl in the movie is or what have you, obviously with the exception of the Daniel Craig movies. Whereas like Indy, like Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. So like he's older now. So unless you want to watch Indiana Jones Adventures in the Retirement Home, like I don't think, that's what you want.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like, as much as I would like it to be something like James Bond, for me it's just like I'm trying to picture anyone else. I can't.
No.
It's Harrison Ford, and it's that character, and I'm not going to care as much if it's somebody else. I don't think. I could be wrong, but I think that's he is just so Indiana Jones.
Okay, I'll put out one more proposal out there. What if you had this franchise take place between the events of The Last Crusade and Dial of Destiny? You had all this time to work with, because between Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny, you're basically dealing with an old Indiana Jones. So what if somebody was doing their research on Indiana Jones and wanted to be like him? So he had adventures like Indiana Jones, so kind of making reference to it, but instead of Indiana Jones, it's Arkansas Davis or something. Something along those lines, where like it's in the world of Indiana Jones, but we have someone who is like inspired. It's kind of like a young Jedi situation. It's not Obi-Wan, but we have, Ahsoka instead.
It feels like when they're getting really creative with science to make like lactose-free ice cream or something. And it's like it can be close, but it's like at the end of the day, you just want the ice cream. Like all I'm going to be thinking about while I'm eating this is how good the real thing is. And I feel like sure, and maybe they make an incredible movie that happens to take place within that world, and that could be cool. But like the whole time, I'm just going to be thinking like I'm just going to probably want to rewatch those other older movies that remind me of what I love about that specific franchise. Because at that point, just make a great movie in some other universe or whatever. I just feel like Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, that is what I signed up for. Like that's what I love it. You know, and I don't know if that can be recaptured by somebody else.
So I couldn't see it I could see it in the universe. Maybe not even in between that time period. It could pick up where the last movie left off. And it's like, here's a stack of Indiana Jones's lost cases, and like that's the premise of the show is some person, some whoever is taking over from him at the university, like he hands over all his, and it can even be Helena's character, like here's all my old cases, kid, and he just hands them off, and then she's got here's like 5 seasons worth of cases that we can work on. Like
I can only imagine. I could see Harrison Ford making a brief cameo of kind of like an animated series where it's like the adventures of not Indiana Jones, and you just have Indiana Jones come in there, and he was like, here's all the treasures I can't find, kid. Yeah. And then like you said, drop a stack of paperwork, and then each episode it's like like there's a theme song of like traveling the world, just you kind of reconciling all of the old cases. I can kind of see that as far as a fun kids way of doing it, or even animated could work.
Absolutely, that can work as an animated show, and put on Disney Plus. Yeah, that makes little 22-minute adventures.
Yeah, or just like the old adventures of Indiana Jones.
You really just what you want Indiana. You just want Harrison Ford to do some voiceover work, because then we don't have to.
No, I'm sorry. I meant like
that could work.
So
too.
Okay, yeah. So you have Harrison Ford voicing a younger Indiana Jones in the 1940s as he's doing all the adventures that we've never seen. The unseen adventures of Indiana Jones. There you go. Now we're cooking, I think. I don't know. I'm drawing straws here. Either way, I don't like how this franchise ended, and I want a better one. That's basically what I'm asking.
That's where you're at. That's really what you're asking for.
I think what we need to wait for is for when the de-aging and deepfake technology gets so good that we can just use a digital version of Harrison Ford and recreate his voice, and you can't even tell. And it's just seamless. And then, so like 100 years down the line, we're going to get a great 6th movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's something to look forward to, right? 100 years from now, we'll get a sequel. But even with Lucasfilm, talking about that very briefly, of like, so right now Lucasfilm has made Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Willow. Do you think out of the animations out of this company, we can maybe develop another original idea? I'm just saying, it's like Lucasfilm is synonymous with Star Wars, and then they kind of branched out and they did Willow, and they tried to do a series and it didn't work because the series is canceled now. And then you had Indiana Jones, which is like the secondary franchise to Star Wars. And so it's like, I don't know, as a movie company, we can maybe work on an original idea. I'm just saying, it's like, it doesn't always have to be Star Wars. It could be something else. Like, you know, you took a long shot with Indiana Jones. Give us, you know, this is your adventure. This is your space adventure. Give us an underwater adventure.
It must be so hard to justify, though, if you're in that meeting room when they're like, so we want to like do some original stuff, like mix up a little bit. And they're like, yeah, but did you see how much people love Star Wars? And they're like, yeah, I know we have the biggest hit of all time, but like, I just want like this new thing that no one recognizes or knows. And they're like, yeah, but did you see how much they love Star Wars?
Do you know how much money we made off of that?
Spin up on a mouse droid and they're gonna watch it.
Yeah.
All right, Nick. Final thoughts.
I was disappointed. I think we share the same sentiment. I think it's a bummer to know that we're never gonna get to try again, and it's a sad note to end on. But I will say this. I did feel very lucky, and it felt very cool to see an Indiana Jones movie in the theater, something I hadn't gotten to do until that point. So that was fun to see Harrison Ford with the whip and the hat and the John Williams music playing on the big screen. That was cool. So that's the takeaway I'll have, and I'll remember, like, that was neat. I got to see an Indiana Jones movie in the theater. Overall, I didn't like the movie, but it was a cool experience to get to do that.
Ernesto?
It was fine. I think I wanted more story and less callback. That's just, and like I really think that I think they could have salvaged a lot of issues I had with the film if they had left him in the past to die. If they had written that into the story, and then that I felt like that would have been just a much better send off, especially since I've never seen the fourth one, and knowing that they got married at the end of the fourth one, that would have been such a polar opposite ending to what happened in the fourth film. Like, because now you get the happy ending of them together in both films, so it's like there's really no difference.
Yeah.
There's really no difference there.
And I mean, at least with the ending of this movie, you get the nice callback of like the scene they shared in the first movie. It was like, where does it hurt? And you kiss and all that stuff. But again, that would have meant something a little bit more. I mean, it meant something in the moment because it was a callback, but it would have meant something more if she was in the movie more.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it would go ahead.
Theoretically, they were kind of kissing and like, you know, maybe making out at that point. And then he's grabbing the hat.
Get the whip in.
Yeah.
He already had the whip. He needed the hat.
That's true.
Yeah, she was like, I want to know, is Indiana Jones back? Oh, right.
That's what she meant. This makes so much sense now. Oh my god. We were looking at this all wrong, guys. We got to reevaluate this whole ending.
Well, now we know what she was actually referencing to.
Now we get it. Oh man. Yeah, I think I don't know. It's Ernesto said it really well earlier, where it's like I'm in my head, I'm trying to justify it that this wasn't a bad movie. Like it's like to your point, it's like I got to see Indiana Jones in the theater again. For me, I saw Crystal Skull. So my two outings has not been the greatest of Indiana Jones stories. But it's like after 15 years of like, I remember when I first saw the trailer for Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, and I was like, wow, that looks great. Like, what is this character? Like, for me, that was like I kind of knew about him, but then I saw it in action in the trailer. And then I witnessed the first three movies, and I was like, this is amazing. These are great films. I can't wait to see his next adventure. And then, you know, in 2008, I was like, well, we still got the original three to be happy about. And then we had 15 years to go off of that. 15 years of, you know, like, I don't know. I felt like, yeah, you know, let's just try this one more time. And it just felt like a series of missed opportunities on a lot of fronts. At the very least, sure, you didn't put Short Round in the movie, and you came back, you know, with Sala and Marion and those cameos. Sure, you gave that to me, but you didn't do anything for Indiana Jones. You didn't, like I said at the beginning of this, is like this felt like another adventure of Indiana Jones. It did not feel like Indiana Jones' last adventure. So at that point, it's like, I don't know. It's just sad that we can't really branch off of this, and instead we have to kind of come to the realization that this is the end, like at this point. And I don't know what Lucasfilm is going to do next with this franchise. It's going to be something. Maybe not for a couple of years, but I feel like it's going to be something. I just don't know what it is.
I don't know. Like, I think we're at a point where we just need to let shit end. Just lay it to rest. You tried twice to end the series the way you wanted,
right,
and it seems like both times. Like, now you're at the point where, like, well, maybe you should have just left it at 3. Like,
yeah, right. At this point, right. Kind of like, you know, I'm being serious here, but Back to the Future and the creators of the Back to the Future, that was their fear. It's like, we did the 3. We don't want to make any more. Like, and I'm sure Universal keeps going back to them every couple of years and be like, hey, want to do a Back to the Future 4? And they're like, no, we have no desire of continuing this franchise. And I'm sure Universal would jump at the chance to do that. But, you know, lucky for them, they own the rights to the franchise, not Universal. And so they can do what they please. Now, once they pass away, I mean, I don't know what happens after that. They can try to branch
Tom
off.
Holland is on standby for Marty McFly. That's exactly what they're like. Hey, just so you know, when they're gone, you're in.
We've already written the script of the continuation. See, but at that point, like, all the original actors, like, nobody, like, barely anybody would come back. So it would be a continuation, like, without them.
Right. You know, it's sad because there's that always that small part of me as a Back to the Future fan is like, I would love to see, you know, Christopher Lloyd, Michael J. Fox just do one more round. But then if we're getting stuff like Dial of Destiny, where I would feel a little bit not like it feels like it was a disappointment, so to speak, then I was like, well, maybe I don't want it.
Maybe I
you
don't
know,
actually
so
want it.
maybe I don't actually want it. So, but yeah, it's not the ending that I was hoping for, and not necessarily the movie I was hoping for. And it kind of just shows to show that we barely even talked about the events that happened in the movie. We were kind of just like, we didn't even talk about Mads Mikkelsen and his villainous role. But
just like, that's a great statement, though, of how they used him. Like, great actor and forgettable, kind of nothing to talk about.
Correct.
Right, exactly. And it felt like that's the conversation we should have been having about the story and how this was a great resounding send-off for Harrison Ford.
But it wasn't.
I still, but it wasn't. And I felt like that even Harrison Ford, he gave it his all at his old age.
Correct.
He's give him that. He is still Indiana Jones, people.
Oh yeah.
He's still got
he played
that.
the hell out of that character.
This was Indiana Jones in a bad movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was very much Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Yes. Pretty much. But yeah, not the movie I was hoping for, but there's the other side of me where it's like, at least there's an Indiana Jones movie that I can watch again, or there's bits and pieces I can get from it, but I would never feel whole watching that movie. So there you go. That's our spoiler review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Not the summer blockbuster we were hoping for, but hey, that's what July is for, right, everybody? We got some.
Good thing there's more movies coming.
Yes, exactly. Nick, thank you for coming on the show again and just talking about Indy. And it's always great to have you on and your perspective. And thank you for giving us your insight on the writer's strike as well. Really do appreciate you joining us and talking about all of that.
Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to hopefully coming back again soon.
You heard it, Matt. We just got to find the movie.
Yeah.
Lock 'em in.
I mean, call it right now. You called. You locked down Indiana Jones like 6 months ago. So give us another movie. We'll lock you down in.
Yeah.
All right, let me think about it. I'll pick one.
Yeah. Now that you got that
Okay,
AMC
all right.
stubs, I assume to hear from you a lot sooner.
But Ernesto, tell the listeners what they can look forward to next week.
Well, we get to see Tom Cruise in all his Tom Cruisiness. No, we're gonna see we are reviewing Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. See him do all his own stunts and what should be the end of Mission Impossible. Although I did read an article somewhere that said he'd play, after seeing Dial of Destiny, that he would play Ethan Hunt until he's 80 years old. I'm like, I could see that. See where like Mission Impossible is like a 007 film, but it has the same problem as Indiana Jones. Like you cannot separate Tom Cruise from Ethan Hunt ever. You can that can never happen.
Spy movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am curious if they're actually going to end it with part 2. Like, they should, because they've been doing this for a while, and you've even called this part 1. It feels odd if they decide to do, well, we have Dead Reckoning part 1 and 2, and then we have a different movie afterwards.
I never thought about that. Is there a franchise that's done that?
Maybe
No.
Fast and the Furious.
That would be hilarious if they're like, part 1, part 2, and then there's like 2 more after that.
Yeah, it's like part 1, part 2, and then we're not calling it part 3. It's just like Mission Impossible. We're doing it again.
Part 2. Hey.
Yeah. But yeah, we get to witness Tom Cruise try to kill himself once more on just for us to get butts in seats. So, but also, you know what? We make fun of him. He puts on a spectacle, and it's
Top Gun Maverick.
always a joy.
He's so crazy.
even the previous Mission Impossible movie, like that was a great movie. And right now, like Ghost Protocol, Fallout, there's one I'm missing right now, and then this one are all sitting on the 90s right now. So he puts on one hell of a show. He does crazy stunts, but it comes to great effect on making a great movie. So I'm forward to Mission Impossible. And if you want more from us, you can always find us on our social media channels, on Instagram at boxoffice_bingers, and our Facebook, TikTok, and Threads page at Box Office Bingers. And if you're still on Twitter, I guess you can go there too at Box Office Binger without the S. Basically, with everything with Threads right now, Twitter's not looking so hot right now. but anyway, we're there too if you wanted to go check us out. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to us talk about movies each and every week. Really do appreciate it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Ben Ernesto Santos. See ya.